It's rotating back and forth.
Griggs and Elko, do you hear me?
We can hear you.
Is Gary with you?
Just got that, sir.
Commissioner Lambert's here, and former Commissioner Glenn as well.
Excellent. All right. I guess we might as well get started. This is Greg McKay, the Chairman of Nevada Commission of Off-Highway Vehicles. I'll call the meeting to order. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I think we'll probably have to pick Larry there in the middle.
Silly again, but the only flag in the room is on my VA card.
Very good. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Larry. Kim, can you do a roll call of the commissioners?
Commissioner Cox?
Present.
Commissioner Elmore?
Present.
Commissioner Baker? Present. Commissioner Jerome?
Present.
Commissioner Griggs?
Here.
Commissioner Jackson?
Present.
Commissioner Lambert?
Why don't you just turn it around and get us
Commissioner
what
Lee?
I'm going to do?
Present.
Commissioner Richardson? And Chair McKay? We have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum. All right. Our next item is public comment. Is there any members of the public in Reno that like to have public comment? And this will be for matters that are not already on the agenda.
I don't know how omni that is, whether they can hear us.
Right there.
Okay, Larry Calkins, Nevada Association Four-Wheel Drive Clubs. I just wanted to have this comment letter that I
Hold on, Larry.
to the commissioners.
Is it on or is it muted?
Go ahead and put it back.
Is that the on?
Yeah.
Green is the on?
Green is on.
Let's try this again. Larry Calkins, Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association. After the agenda came out in December for the predecessor of these couple time postponed meetings, I had just had some comments back to the commission, and I just wanted to read this into the agenda. Some of it's actually been handled on the agenda, but I did have a concern.
Larry,
Tell them to mute.
will you ask Las Vegas to mute?
No, let's wait. Elko. Elko, could you mute, please?
Can Elko hear me?
Elko.
Hello?
Elko?
Elko.
Elko, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now?
Elko, can you please mute your thing if you're talking? Because we can hear your conversation over the other public comment.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll move forward. Larry?
Yeah.
The teacher is scolded.
Didn't say be easy.
Anyway, once again, this is Larry Calkins, Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association. I had written this letter that concerns about the four-wheel drive vehicles being on the agenda and the legislative priorities has been addressed on this agenda for today. However, the comment that I have a great concern about was on the agenda item 7 from the December 12th agenda. That item was a memo from Scott McKenna to Chairman McKay, item 1, where it said that governmental entities, because they're not persons, would not be allowed to apply for NCOHV grant monies. because 84 to 86% of this state is governed by governmental agencies, we think that a lot of OHV opportunity would drop or be not applied for. And then also in the case of law enforcement agencies, which are governmental agencies, does this exclude them from being able to apply for grants, which would be a real problem. So anyway, I'm going to turn this into the secretary and for the record.
Thank you, Larry. Any other public comment?
Good afternoon. Good morning, Commissioners. This is Scott Gers with the Nevada Trail Stewards. I was wanting to address the scored non-subjective grant process again. And I wrote a little letter to leave with the Commission today. It states the Nevada Trail Stewards and the OHV community strongly believe in the scored non-subjective grant process. This alarming concept continues to send up red flags and has been highlighted in the 2013-2014 grant process, requiring this appeal, subsequent rebuilding of the grant process in pursuit of regulatory standards. As Mr. Jackson stated on 7/2/14 at the NHV meeting at Legislative Council Bureau, two commissioners could vote to score 0 and block a grant, giving 2 commissioners veto power over the commission. That's something that really stuck with me, and I felt that it was important to bring up again, since this subjective grant process is still in the regulatory. The concept of placing legislation specifically designed to entice this type of behavior by our public officials is unacceptable, and it's a potential abuse of political power, especially for an appointed, not an elected commission. Legislative language such as the subjective grant award process will lead to the moral and certainly legal issues tempting conspiracy and coercion. The Nevada Commission on Off-Highway Vehicles is charged with dispersing what may very well be tens of millions of dollars in the upcoming years and must be held to a much higher standard in the future. This process must not be overlooked and removed from the regulation. Sincerely, Scott Gers, Nevada Trail Stewards.
Thank you, Scott. Any further public comment? From Rita? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I do, off the cuff.
That's all right.
Sorry. Thank you. Karen Boger, Board of Directors of Nevada Chapter Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, and also the Nevada Wildlife Coalition, although because I'm doing this off the cuff, I can't say I'm officially speaking for either of those. But anyway, Happy New Year. I want to thank you for your public service and being here yet again for another year of this wild ride. I have both a comment and a question. My comment is, sometimes I think this gray hair gives me liberty to give little history lessons, but for those of you who weren't part of the absolutely years-long, about decade-long process of trying to get this this registration bill through the legislature, I can say that we gave serious consideration to who it was that was going to be the entity to administer it. And there were lots of ideas at that time, and one of the very strong contenders was the Department of Wildlife, and I know you've seen the audit for where these are administered in other states, and in a number of them they are with their fish and game departments. But to many of us it seemed a very appropriate place because they already have an existing well-run boat registration program. However, NTEL was pretty concerned about that because they are stretched to the max for funding, and the primary source of their funding are sportsmen and women. So how to make that equitable. Also, their facilities would be well stretched too. So unless we could come up for funding to take care of those concerns, that wasn't a likely possibility, and so the DMV was selected to be the not so happy recipient. As in my recollection, it was our perception that we kind of had to strong arm them to accept it, and so there are probably inherent problems with that. So I see that you're going to do some consideration anyway of who should be the proper entity, where it can be done most efficiently, effectively, so that you can maximize the funds that go toward projects. Secondly, my question is, why is it that we need a BDR to put into law what the grant system is going to be? It's my recollection of the act that went through the legislature is that we had a very well set up system of how the percentages of funds to be dispersed to the various categories for projects, but I don't recall that we codified what the actual grant, how the actual grant process was going to work. And it seems to me to take up the entire legislator's time, very valuable time, was something as, down in the weeds as that is maybe not an appropriate way to go, but rather open public process such as we've had to date in discussing how that grant process should be, seems to me more appropriate. But that's it for me for today, I think.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any further public comment from Reno? Very well. Is there any public comment from Las Vegas?
Yes.
Yes, there is. Good morning. My name is Ross Williams. I'm a resident of Las Vegas, lifelong motorcyclist, off-road motorcyclist. And I'm here today to speak about the revision of the resource management plan that the BLM is doing in Clark and Nye counties right now. I don't know if this is even on your radar screen, but it's kind of a big deal. Every 15 years, the Bureau of Land Management updates their RMP. The RMP, in effect, governs what the BLM does with the lands that they manage. And in the current revision that they've been working on for about 6 years, the document is 2,200 pages. And so it's very lengthy and very complex. The part about it that affects the off-road community the most is that they are going to take 1.6 million acres just in Clark County alone and change the status from allowing us to use existing roads, trails, and dry washes to limiting it to only designated routes, which might sound innocuous enough, but in my experience with dealing with the BLM in other areas, that probably means that in these areas in Nevada, we're going to lose about 90% of the routes that we currently enjoy. One of the big problems with the process that they're going through is they're trying to change the way that basically the classification from using existing to using only designated. They're trying to change that rule first, and then after the fact, once they get that rule in place, then they will do their travel management plan, which will actually decide what the routes will be. It should be the opposite way. So there's a group of us down here. We call ourselves Safer. Don't ask me what that means, but it's a loosely knit group of people that have various interests in the public lands and access to the public lands. We're trying to put as much pressure as we can on the county commission, City of Las Vegas, City of Henderson, as many governmental entities that we can. What our primary objective is at the moment is to get the period for public comment extended. It initially was 90 days, beginning in October of last year. It was supposed to end January 7th. We were able to get a 30-day extension, so currently it will extend to February 6th. But we're pushing for a 12-month extension on this, which will give us, not just us, give everybody the chance to really evaluate this thing. You know, it's big. It's the number of pages, in fact, exceeds the Affordable Care Act at 2,200 pages. And 90 days or 120 days is a totally insufficient time for us to be able to analyze that. So we're pushing for a year. We met with County Commission Chairman Sisolak and Commissioner Brown yesterday, and they agreed to put a resolution out there asking for the 1-year extension. We're just trying to get this known by as many people as we can, and to try to put pressure on them, because it's what I have seen in other parts of the country is this is a relentless pursuit by different interests to limit access to public lands. And we got to put a stop to it, especially in Nevada. I mean, I've seen it go on up in Idaho. Nevada is particularly inappropriate for this type of approach because Nevada is wide open and it's desert. And if we stay to existing roads and trails, there's not really much we can do to hurt the land. And you know, the BLM hasn't made a case for any of the things that they're trying to do. They're on their website, and I'll give you the URL, is where you can put in comments. And it's very important that people do this. So the URL is tinyurl, tinyurl.com/Q, Z as in zebra, V as in victory, AHT7. It's very important that all you guys who enjoy off-roading get on there and make some comments. The big issue is the one of access and changing from existing to designated routes without specifying what those routes will be.
Thank you very much, Ross.
You're welcome.
Any further comment in Las Vegas?
No.
All right. Any public comment from Elko?
The public in the room says he has no comment, but I'd like to answer Mrs. Vogler's question if she's still there.
She is.
Yes.
Your question was why are we adopting regulations to...
This is Raylene Palmer. I'm sitting as board counsel. I think you should wait till that item comes up on the agenda.
Yeah, we will be discussing it later after our
Oh.
recommendation.
Okay. No comment here then.
Very good. If there is no additional public comment, I'll close the public comment section of the meeting. The next is meeting minutes for discussion or possible action. We can approve, modify, or reject the minutes from the commission meetings held on. First one is March 13th, 2014. There's a copy of the minutes over there in the corner. They've been posted on our website for a considerable amount of time also. So I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of March 13th of 2014.
Commissioner Jackson, I would make a motion that we approve the minutes for March 13th and for October 27th of 2004.
Okay. Do we have a second for that motion?
Commissioner Giroux, I'll second that.
Commissioner Giroux seconds the motion to approve both March 13th and October 27th meeting minutes. Any discussion from the commissioners?
This is Commissioner Elmore. I guess these previously have been held. One or more of the commissioners were unsure that they were accurate. Have we resolved those issues to their satisfaction so that we can move forward? Are they still in limbo? I guess I need to know what the scoop is there before I can.
Okay. Are there any reservations by members of the commission about these minutes that may preclude them from voting to approve them?
Discussion.
Hearing none, I believe we can move forward and act on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Is there any opposed? Hearing no opposition, the motion is unanimously approved. Very well. Item number 6 is a public hearing on draft regulations returned by the Legislative Council Bureau for discussion only. The Commission will discuss and hear public comment on the draft regulations, which specifically is R131-14, returned by the Legislative Council Bureau pertaining to the grant administrative process. Now, being that this is a public hearing, it was posted 30 days ago on the appropriate sites specified by statute. And we'd first like to hear from the public if they have any comments about the draft regulations submitted to us by the Legislative Council Bureau. And after that, we'll probably have a brief discussion by the Commission about any of their concerns. So, and that, is there any public comment on these draft regulations by the public here in Reno? Leo, please do.
I will jump into the 4A. For the record, Leo Drum, Bureau of Land Management. I only had a few comments, and I sent this to Ken yesterday. I don't know if you all got a copy of this or not. Addressing Section 9, if the term person is taken to mean an individual or a business and excluding government agencies, first off, that was not the legislative intent. And I've got documents of the minutes of the Senate Transportation Committee hearing in 2009, I believe it was, that corroborates the legislative intent was to have government agencies be able to apply for that. Likely this might take a legislative fix, and I've actually got some draft language that I can share with you for that. BLM's short-term strategy for grants for projects on public land was to partner with various groups and local and state government agencies. There are a handful of groups that are capable of performing what we would consider large-scale projects on public land that we have worked with in the past. But we have several circumstances where we've actually partnered with local communities and counties. And I'll use the Sand Mountain Blue Butterfly Trail System as an example. That was using Question 1 money, and federal agencies were specifically prohibited by statute from applying for Question 1 grants. So we partnered with Churchill County. They actually applied for a grant to establish a trail system in Sand Mountain through the blue butterfly habitat. This was going to be a requirement, otherwise that entire area could have been closed down. Churchill County received the grant, hired Great Basin Institute to actually perform the work on public land. And we were able to keep a fairly significant OHV area that contributed largely to the local economy open because of that partnership. So we would like to be able to continue with these types of partnerships. Just because of the federal bureaucracy, we feel that partnering with other agencies and groups is the most efficient use of the OHV fund money, and that way our national operations center isn't taking a 22% cut off the top for administrative purposes. So that's my comment for Section 9. Section 27 allows for different types of costs to be included in the application, and I was a little concerned with number 3 that says expenses related to providing programs and activities that will benefit children. It seems to be overly broad, and I think it needs to be probably further defined. In just a general reading of this, I could see where this could provide for daycare or after-school activities or just about anything that maybe isn't related to OHV activities. Number 5, the cost of supplies, materials, and tools for the proposed project, including, without limitation, item B is vehicles. And I, again, think that there should be some type of limit or definition as to what the intent is. It seems like at this point, people could apply for, brand new F-250s to go out and do whatever they plan on doing. Number 15, also under Section 27, the cost of studies, plans, and analysis necessary to carry out the proposed projects, including without limitation, item B, management plans for shared trails to be used by off-highway vehicles. And I guess my question is, shared by whom? It seems like there is a requirement that the trail would have to be shared with, and I'm not sure who, whether it be a non-motorized or another class of off-highway vehicle. And I would suggest that the term shared be removed from that. Management plans for all off-highway vehicle trails should be appropriate for funding, regardless of whether they're shared or not. And then Section 28, the following costs must not be included in an application. Number 5, the cost of facilities that are ornamental in nature and do not provide a direct benefit to the general public or the users of off-highway vehicles. And I think some type of definition or example of ornamental would help define what this is. I think, as written, it's a little too subjective, and someone could say, well, that's ornamental, and someone could disagree with it. And that would be my comments on the regulations.
Chair, can we ask a question this time?
Sure.
Can you hear me in Las Vegas?
Yes.
Right. On section 3, using a person. In your opinion, does that preclude you from using partnerships, since the other partner would be regarded as a person?
It would. In our recent dealings, it would severely limit who we were able to work with. We have, a few organizations in the state that have the capability to manage the funding, and we're talking probably some serious money here, that have the processes in place to be accountable for those funds. If it's completely limited to those organizations, I think you're going to start to see, some questions raised by the public that this handful of groups are going to be the ones pretty much receiving those grants. So again, being at our history of working with local governments who also provide a voice for the people seems to work really well, and I would hate to see this whole class of any local, county, state, governments being excluded from applying for grants.
Paul Jackson, for the record. You're correct in your assumption. You're correct in your statement that the legislative intent was not to exclude public bodies. I was there at the hearings. I was very involved in it at the time. So, what are you suggesting as a correction?
Actually, I've got a little draft of. I would have to go back. It's the section that talks about persons applying for grants, and I don't have the NRS citation. It's paragraph 2.
But if you've got the language, and this may not be the appropriate moment to present the language, but if you have the language ready for when we come to this part,
I've got that. It's a very simple fix.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Leo. Good points. Any other public comment from the Reno audience?
Right, thank you.
Is there any public comment from Las Vegas?
Does not appear to be.
Very well. Is there any public comment from Elko?
I've polled our vast crowd here in Elko, and there's no public comment.
Very good. Then I'm going to open this conversation to commissioners. Bearing in mind we can arrive at no decision today, we can discuss this for further action at our next meeting. So having said that, are there any concerns by the commissioners? And we'll go for Elko first if you guys have any concerns about these draft regulations.
Commissioner Lambert, for the record. I want to thank Leo for his good work on issues within those regulations. And in general, I've been able to support most of Leo's activities. I still personally think that given our last round of grants, we need to get rid of this objective language of considering things that are not in our guidebook and make our guidebook all-inclusive. That would be my only comment today. Thank you.
John Griggs.
Go ahead, Commissioner Griggs.
I also want to thank Mr. Drum. Those are great comments, and I agree with them all, and I think they should be incorporated.
Thank you, Commissioner Griggs. Las Vegas, any comment from the commissioners on the draft regulation?
This is Mr. Cox. I guess I'm a little concerned about the government entities as well. And then on the memorandum page number 2, deals with the grant guide, the grant book, whatever. I guess the way I'm looking at that is we can't have one. We have to call a request for grant applications, and I guess we'll have to work on that. But more importantly, I have a concern starting on about page 10 with the timeline laid out for posting, making the final decisions on the grant. I mean, it's like 3 pages long. So I think we really need to take some look at that and see how we're going to either incorporate it in the future or modify it somehow. It's pretty long and subjective and drawn out in my mind.
Thank you, Charlie. Any other comments by the commissioners down in Las Vegas?
This is Commissioner Baker, and I too wanted to vet that out. If we could just talk about that. So we from the way I read it, we take public comment and then we score during the meeting, and then we post the scores, and then there's a appeal period. And then we would meet again and rehear anyone that requested to be reheard. Then we could adjust the scores, we post again, and then we have to meet a third time to actually award. And I guess there's no other way around it to accommodate an appeal. It seemed like when we were doing it before, we were like, if we had concerns, we at least let the other ones start. But maybe this is an okay process. I guess I'm just wanting to say that's how we all understand it. That's what is being requested. And I think that that's okay, because I'm thinking we were talking about the way we scored last time is that we had an idea in our mind of our concerns, but then as we took the public, as we heard the presentation and then had our own dialogue amongst ourselves about the pros and cons of that, we all felt more comfortable and had a solid, maybe not number in our mind, but a comfort of going forward or not going forward. So I like the way that process is written out. It just seems like we have to commit then to meeting 3 times within a month period to get these awards out, and is that realistic, I guess? I don't know that there's any other way around it, but I just wanted to talk through it and get everybody else's feedback on that.
This is Mr. Cox again. I guess I'm wondering why the Legislative Council came up with this timeline. If there's some legal reason we have to do it this way, because I don't remember requesting it that way.
Very good. And I think that's something we'll have to take up with the LCV after this discussion.
After the legislative session.
Any discussion by the commissioners here, Rena, Commissioner Elmore?
This is Commissioner Elmore. I definitely am concerned if members of the public and folks like Leo and Commissioner Jackson were involved in the original intent process here, and it now excludes some of the agencies we absolutely wanted to include. We definitely need to look at doing whatever we can to address that. But Leo presented this sheet with some worked up language, and I found the specific section, and I believe it to be NRS 490.068 is actually where this issue exists. 490.068 actually does reference 069, but the actual language that Leo presented that's kind of redlined and reworked is actually 490.068 section 2 item A is where it's listed. So I just wanted to point that out, looking at this deal that Leo had worked up. And it looks like it could be addressed in a simple legislative text adjustment in that one section where it uses the word person, I think, twice, and then goes on to use applicant everywhere else. So that would be the only thing I wanted to point out.
Thank you, Darren. Any other commissioners? Raylene, I know you've done a little bit of research on this, and for the record, I think we're going to be speaking, Raylene and LCB, a bit about the draft regulations to get some more clarity out of this. But would you like to offer some comments on this person issue and the lack of government entities being able to participate in our grant process?
Sure, I can do that. As far as some of the comments on how governmental agencies can participate, the regulations seem to make clear that there's nothing that would prevent a partnership with a governmental entity in the manner that's prescribed by regulation. When I speak with Mr. McKenna, I can certainly ask him what he believes the regulation would allow for and what it wouldn't allow for. My biggest concern when I first read it was the part of the 069, which requires you to disperse 20% of the funds to law enforcement. And I was concerned about who that wasn't a government that wasn't a governmental entity could qualify. But here's the answer to that. The 20% that you disperse to law enforcement does not have to go through the grant process. That is just upon recommendation of the Office of Criminal Justice through the Department of Public Safety. So that 20% can definitely go to law enforcement agencies. So it's the other 75% that's subject to the grant process.
Yeah, we'll expand on that. I believe it's item 9. We'll discuss that further. But after looking at the statutes, law enforcement actually will be based on Office of Criminal Justice recommendations and not part of our grant process. Based on the balance available January 1st of each year, 20% of those funds will be given to law enforcement on the recommendation of Office of Criminal Justice. And we'll speak more about that specifically on that item right there. Are there any other concerns about draft regulations from the commissioners? Okay, I think
this is Commissioner.
Go ahead.
Commissioner Baker.
Go ahead, Sue.
I want to throw out one other. I just want to throw this out. I don't know if it would be good or bad, but anxious for feedback. It seems, and I'll ask counsel, but it seems to me that the NRS allowed us to reserve some money and not give it all through the grant process. And even though they dictated the percentage for law enforcement, maybe instead of changing the NRS so that the federal agencies can be in partnership with local or state agencies state agency to apply for the grant, what if we actually set a separate amount aside for those agencies, for the wildlife and for the BLM, maybe the Forest Service, and then we work directly with them to give money that is directly related to the OHV use? Is that a possibility?
That would entail a legislative change.
That would too?
Yes. Now, let me answer the first part of your question. 80% of your funds are discretionary. You don't have to disperse them. The only part that you do have to disperse is the 20% that has to go to law enforcement. Everything else is discretionary. 5%, although it's discretionary, you have to use that to be able to administer the grant process. So if you didn't issue any grants, then that 5% wouldn't have to be spent. But obviously you have other expenditures just through running the business of the commission. So it's the 75% of, and it's NRS 490-069, subsection 3B1 and 2. So those items in B1 and 2, that is what the grant process pertains to. Nothing else. So if you want to be able to, like the 20% says it must go somewhere, if you want to be able to designate a percentage to go somewhere else that would not be discretionary, if you want to remove that discretion, that would have to be done through a legislative change.
But what if it wasn't, but what if it is discretionary every year? And so say, I mean, how much was the grant money last time? How much total funds are there? 400,000. So if we say we already know X amount has to go to law enforcement, right? So then if we take another, maybe even half, and say we want to deal with the federal agencies with that money, and we want to give the other half out to true nonprofits,
Paragraph 4 says
whether they're official or not.
Paragraph 4 says
and then use the other
30%.
money
You can
to-
only go 30% for each subparagraph.
Yeah.
3, so you can't go half.
Sent to each project.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, you're talking about making a change in how it's currently, what your discretion is now to currently fund. So you can disperse 60% to any of these 6, but no more than 30% can go to any one project. So no more than 30% of that 60%.
Whether it's through the grant process or not?
Well, there is no not right now. You're talking about wanting to make a change. Right now, this can only be done through the grant process.
Okay, so clarify this for me, because I thought you said we didn't actually have to spend all the money through grants, but we don't have the option to spend it another way. We just don't have to spend it through grants.
Exactly.
I see. So maybe that would be the way to do this.
Smoke gets thinner.
Yeah, that was confusing to me, but I really like the idea of maybe not making the federal agencies compete with the nonprofits for things and set aside a certain amount. Like, as an example, with the issue now of the Southern Nevada, Northern Nye County BLM RMP process, they need help documenting trails before things don't go away. So it's like, I would love, like we were holding our breath hoping the BLM would apply for money to document trails in the Pahrump area. That's where they said it's missing. If we know that, we could actually set the money aside and do that, not holding our breath for the grant to happen. So, and we could see, and the same thing with some of the other issues that we're familiar with, where the sage grouse. If we knew we could target money to solve a problem, we could just do that and not make them compete with the other people. So I'm just thinking that might, if we got to make a change to the NRS, then maybe that's the way we ought to do it, so that we're aware of the problems and we partner directly with that federal agency to solve the problem and don't make them compete.
I want to backtrack for just a minute, and I'd like to look at the legislative history on this, because the language says that any remaining portion of the money may be used as follows. It's not really speaking to limiting it to the grant process, so it may be that the commission would have the authority to directly contract with somebody to carry out those certain projects. So I'd like to take a look at that and maybe get some more clarification.
Okay.
especially in the area of public safety and training and education, which we need to do.
Yeah. Perfect, okay.
Very good. I think we've been given good general direction by the commission and the public, some areas to investigate. I agree with all the points that were brought up today. Why don't you give us a chance to go back, work with LCB, get some better, clear answers, and we'll address it at our next meeting. Any objections to that direction? Any further comments by the commissioners?
Chairman McKay?
Yes.
I just want to make sure that this box question was answered, because this would have been the appropriate time to address it when she asked why a VDR was needed. I think that was the question that was going to be answered.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if she meant a VDR or if she meant this regulation, because the statute provides that you have to adopt regulations setting forth how you're going to administer the grant process. So that's the reason why you need the regulation. If you're going to award grants, you have to have the regulation. If you're not awarding grants, you don't need the regulation.
Okay, Karen?
Mr. Lambert?
I understand that.
Why don't you come forward?
Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
I think I understand fully what you're saying. It's just that, while yes, they were directed to come up with a plan for how to deal with the grants, it was not my understanding that the method that they chose to do so had to be codified in law.
Well, it's codified through administrative code, which is law. It's not an NRS, so it doesn't have to go back through the legislature, but it does have to go through the legislative drafting process.
I see. Okay. So it won't actually have to go to committee and be debated as to whether it's an appropriate granting process?
No.
Okay. All right.
Well,
Thank
no.
you. Appreciate it.
Larry?
Yeah, Larry Calkins, Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association. I was just going to comment. Commissioner Baker asked about the timeline in there and where it came from, and the answer was the August 7th workshop that was held on the commission, by the commission for the grant process.
Thank you. Any further comments in Elko? Any further comments in Elko?
Mr. Lambert? Mr. Lambert from Elko. I have a question for Raylene. In regard to if we hold this setback and hold some money in our account, is it true that we would be subject to 20% of that money going to law enforcement if it was not consumed within the year?
Yes, that's correct. Whatever that balance is on January 1st, 20% of that has to go to law enforcement.
Okay. I would probably be in favor of looking at legislation that would change the way that works so that we could hold 20%, hold some amount of money and not give them an additional 20% on it. As an additional comment, I welcome the discussion, but for me personally, to block the user group's contribution to this money and say that it's going to the government would be a violation of the user group's faith in me. So I would have to oppose that because it is the user group's fee. The government and the counties should be in a position to go out and solicit for good projects and find good sponsors that will support that. And those support letters should be weighted heavily towards what grants we approve. As to blocking money that I pay for green stickers for the BLM, the Forest Service, or Lincoln or Nye County, I'm going to oppose that unless it's for the law enforcement as is in the regulation, for the simple fact that they need to get support from the user groups, and those user groups need to tell us as a commission where the value of their stickers should be placed. That's just my opinion, but I will stand pretty hard with it. Thank you.
Very good.
This is Commissioner Baker, and I just wanted to reply to Commissioner Lambert. And I agree with you on one hand, but on the other hand, the different federal agencies that work in Nevada work differently in the different regions of Nevada. And I think that was pretty clear when you see the prior grant applications and the lack of representation from some of those federal agencies in the southern half of the state. And that's just frustrating. And I know I had talked about it before, and I think it's okay that it's not memorialized in the regulations, but I think we have to be very mindful of where that revenue is coming from. And if 75% of the revenue is coming from the southern part of the state, it would be unfair to put that money in the northern, the majority of it back up in the northern. And I don't think we have to be dollar for dollar, but I think we have to be very, very mindful of just what you said. The OHV users that are paying for it and who they are and where that money's going back. So we just have to be cognizant of that. And that was my way of saying that.
That's not used. That's just.
I don't know why,
where they're
but
buying.
the agencies in the south weren't applying for the grants, and they were in the north. And this would be a way to help.
That doesn't make sense.
Commissioner Lambert?
How we do. Do you have any business by count?
Just the population basis supports
Okay. Let's get a little more order back in the discussion. Thank you, Sue, for your comments. Commissioner Lambert, one more shot.
Right. Can I have a shot after?
Commissioner Lambert, for the record, I do believe that there's a learning curve involved for the federal government. I believe that early on, Mr. Drum was in support of the federal agencies reaching out and having public entities or private entities that supported his grant goals. I do understand that there was a learning curve and a delay, and that the federal agencies in general were waiting to see this thing shake out. I am comfortable that they were learned to reach for the golden ring. I really encourage them to have good participation and involvement with the people that pay for the stickers. As to the distribution of money should be weighted towards the user groups. And while Southern Nevada has the largest population, they have the smallest remaining available user areas. So that until such a point in time when there's been an economic study, a travel study, and it incorporates the tourism dollars and how a potential future out-of-state revenue might affect us, I'm going to have trouble with saying it's a north-south issue because we have not defined the issue. We don't know where people come from. I personally participate in an event on Fridays that has 40 people come from all over Northern California. We have not defined or audited to tell where the user groups are recreating. The money doesn't need to go where the people live. The money needs to go to where the people recreate. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Jackson.
Baker.
Sue, hang on one sec. I got two on Reno here. Commissioner Jackson and Commissioner
Really
Richards.
pass it down.
As close as you get.
Yeah, well, definitely. Commissioner Jackson, for the record, I think Mr. Drum's point wasn't that he was going to exclude user groups. He wanted to work in partnerships. He just had some concerns about sizable projects and how they would be done with only a certain number of user groups being able to do that. But my point would be that we are not, as a commission, forced to take on those grants. We have latitude. And one of the reasons we built the latitude in was that we could consider things like, is the project worth doing, and is there user group input? And quite honestly, if there is a concern about the size, maybe 2 or 3 user groups could get together and work with BLM. There's a myriad of different things. But because we have some latitude in this situation, we can consider all of those things and make sure that the things are done to the best, we get the best value for our dollars, and that we get the most user groups and public involved as we possibly can. And again, sometimes BLM would have to be involved as long as other organizations, but again, we are pushing towards the user groups, and our latitude does give us that ability.
Commissioner Richardson, go ahead.
You'll have to yell. This is retarded. So just from a user perspective, you buy a motorcycle, dirt bike, OHV in Southern Nevada, you don't ride it in Southern Nevada because there isn't many places in Southern Nevada to ride. So that being said, for me, in my experience, you go to Dumont, you go to Central Utah, Southern Utah, but here in Northern Nevada, there's a more established areas right outside your backyard. So it would make sense to me that, yes, the population base in Southern Nevada, that's where you buy the motorcycle. There's 3 times as many people in Southern Nevada than there is in Northern Nevada to buy, so that makes sense. So the user groups themselves are the ones that need to be represented, not the population base. That's my opinion. So I would echo Mr. Lambert's concern for that as well. Thank you.
I think this Commissioner McKay, for the record, everyone made good points. I think when we get down to this grant application and some of those discussions, we can talk about this, and I'm sure we can address both concerns. Any further comments by any of the commissioners?
Commissioner Baker.
All right, Commissioner Baker, go ahead.
I don't want to belabor the point about the distribution of the revenue, but I want to go on record as saying I don't agree at all. If the people in Southern Nevada are paying the registration fees, then we should be making sure that some of that money stays here to develop some of the, there's rural areas in Southern Nevada that could benefit from trails. And so if you're saying you live in Southern Nevada, you pay your $20 registration fee and you get no benefit because you drive to Utah, so all the money should go to Northern Nevada where the people who pay for the sticker don't go? I don't understand that logic.
Nobody
and
said
so,
that. Nobody said that.
This is Commissioner McKay. Sue, I think you may have just misinterpreted that a little bit. We're very conscious of who buys the stickers and where, and if there are opportunities in Southern Nevada for development in the areas, I'm sure we would consider them very strongly. So, Commissioner Elmore?
This is Commissioner Elmore. I just had a quick clarification question for Raylene. Raylene, I just want to make sure that I completely understand this issue with the definition of a person as described in the LCB draft. I can't get my iPad to come up, so I think it's the second item, but where it defines a person, and then we had clarification on what the person, how a person is defined. So I'm going to ask you this theoretical question. As a sportsman's representative, I think it's theoretical that the Department of Wildlife, NDOW, state agency, would want to come to the commission, ask for funds to work on a sage-grouse project, which the commission may or may not think is worthwhile. It could pertain to the 60% through the last line item where it talks about restoration of habitat. And we theoretically could think it's the greatest project in the world, and unless we change the person definition legislatively, we can't give them any money. Is that correct?
You could not give it to them directly, but if there was another, either a business or an individual, they could work with them to accomplish the same goal. So the grant would actually be awarded to the individual or a non-governmental entity, and then the project would be completed that way. They would perhaps have to work with them anyway because the land doesn't belong to the individual, and then you see in the regulations, and that sort of speaks to the process that the regulations envision in accordance with the interpretation of the NRS. I don't know if that answers your question.
So in short, the definition, having the word person in NRS 490.068 or 9, wherever it's listed, is limiting.
It is limiting in the sense that you cannot award directly to a governmental entity. That's correct.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was understanding it crystal clear. Thank you.
And then there's one more thing, Chairman McKay, to answer Mr. Gert's question, and I think Commissioner Jackson was just touching upon this, and I think that's the subjective portion of the grant process versus non-subjective. And if you look at NRS 490.068, subsection 3, the non-advising member, the non-voting advisors to the commission are supposed to be involved in that process. They shall review for completeness and for compliance with the requirements. That's a mandatory review. So you've got other people involved in the process other than commissioners that are advising. They're not voting, but they're there overseeing and making recommendations. So that should provide a little bit of comfort on the discretionary aspect of that.
Thank you, Council. Any further comments? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close this public hearing on the draft regulations. Obviously, we're going to be doing a lot more research on the points that were brought up today and bring it back at our next meeting for further discussion. Item number 7 is a presentation from the Nevada Division of Audits for discussion and possible action. The Commission will hold a presentation on the audit performed by the Nevada Department of Administration, Division of Internal Audits. The audit was finalized on December 10, 2014 by the Nevada Board of Examiners and was conducted for the purpose of evaluating the Commission's performance and making suggested improvements. The Commission may accept, reject, amend, implementing the recommendations posed in the audit. I'd like to introduce Victor Vito, and what's the best way? Azude, from the Executive Branch Auditors. He was going to go through this audit. If there's questions, I think we can take them just as we're talking point by point. And we'll leave it to Vita, and we'll talk about it later.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the Commission. Vita Azude, for the record, I'm an auditor with the Division of Internal Audits for the state. We performed an audit of the Commission on Off-Highway Vehicles program, which was presented to the Executive Branch Audit Committee on December 10th, 2014. In the course of our audit, we interviewed current and former members of this commission, State of Nevada agencies, Federal Bureau of Land Management, and Department of Motor Vehicles, DMV personnel. Part of our procedures involved reviewing and testing DMV's OHV revenues and expenses. We also verified the accuracy of the registration fee apportionment to the Commission. In addition, we surveyed other states regarding their OHV programs. After performing all these procedures, we focused on 3 objectives that we believe will be beneficial to this Commission. Our first objective deals with revising the funding structure to maximize funds for OHV projects. The current statute requires that the funding structure be 85% of total registration fees goes to the Commission and 15% goes to DMV. In addition to the 15% that goes to the DMV, DMV also retains all the titles of the title fees and the late registration fees. For fiscal 2014, the Commission received $665,339 in registration fees, while DMV received $118,121 in registration fees, $263,497 in title fees, and $23,615 for late registration fees, for a total of $405,233. DMV's of the total revenues goes into an account called Account for Administration of OHV Titling and Registration. All funds in this account must be used for OHV titling and registration by DMV, and any remaining funds has to continue to remain in this account and be carried forward to the next fiscal year. It cannot be used for anything else. At the time of our audit, DMV's revenues exceeded its operating expenses by approximately $100,000. Since these funds cannot be used for any other purpose, excess funds in the account will continue to accumulate. We estimate that excess funds in the account would accumulate up to $2.78 million in over 10 years if you approach 100% compliance. So we're recommending that the Commission should consider seeking legislation that will allow DMV to transfer to the Commission all OHV program revenues in excess of its expenses. The second part of this first objective deals with sharing of revenue and expense data. Discussions with Commission members and DMV officials disclose program revenues and expense data are not currently being shared with the Commission members. We believe that sharing such information would help the Commission to verify the accuracy of the revenue apportionment. We recommend that the Commission should consider coordinating with DMV to obtain program revenue and expense data. Such an arrangement leads to increased transparency as well as assure the Commission the funds are being properly allocated. Our second objective deals with increasing OHV program revenues. At the beginning of the program, DMV spent $88,000 for public outreach, which resulted in approximately 20% registration compliance or 40,000 OHV registrations. And we based the 20% on the low end of the number of OHVs that was given to the legislature when this program started. It was anywhere between 200,000 OHVs in Nevada to 425,000 OHVs in Nevada. Based on current registration, we went towards more towards the 200,000 instead of 425. So that's how the 20% came up. NRS 490 requires funds to be used for purposes such as enforcement, public outreach, and cruise management. Because of the difficulties the Commission has had in establishing regulations for administering grants, no funds have been expended for these activities. Consequently, much of the OHV public is either unaware of OHV titling and registration requirements or are unconcerned with compliance, as enforcement efforts are currently non-existent. In the first quarter of fiscal year 2015, the program experienced negative growth in active registration for the first time since the program began. Active registration declined as new registrations were not sufficient to offset the decline in renewals. In essence, people registered, but they never went back and renewed. So you have more registrations coming in, but the renewals are not offsetting the decline in those renewals. Our survey of other states disclosed that enforcement and public outreach is critical to program compliance, especially in the early stages of the program. As of January 1st, 2015, as you guys have already heard, the Commission has approximately $150,000 available for public outreach and $200,000 for enforcement efforts. We recommend the Commission should consider developing and implementing procedures to ensure funds are expended for OHV enforcement and public outreach. We are actually recommending that public outreach and enforcement be prioritized as part of your moving ahead. Based on the results of the initial expenditures for public outreach, the $88,000 that DMV initially spent, we estimate spending $150,000 could generate approximately $1.2 million in additional registration revenue, as public is made aware through public outreach that registration and titling of OHVs is now legally required. The second part of this objective deals with out-of-state OHVs. At the current time, statute does not require registration for an OHV if the OHV is registered in another state and located in Nevada for less than 15 days. Additionally, the statute has no provisions for out-of-state riders who are in Nevada longer than 15 days or are not registered in another state. Our survey of other states disclosed that out-of-state OHV registration requirements vary from one state to the other. However, all the states surveyed have programs to accommodate out-of-state OHVs and OHV riders. Some states offer out-of-state decal programs that are similar to selling of fishing licenses, whereby licensed vendors will maintain a stock of decals and remit fees collected, minus nominal agent fee to the Commission. We recommend the Commission should consider implementing a program where decals are required for out-of-state OHVs located in Nevada for more than 15 days or not registered in another state. Implementing a decal program could provide additional revenues of approximately $144,000, assuming that those decals are selling at $20, which is the present registration fee, while allowing out-of-state riders a means to participate in Nevada's recreational opportunities. Our third and final objective deals with the Commission being hosted by a state agency. The OHV Commission was established as an independent body with no administrative or budgetary support from an executive branch agency. As a result, the Commission is still trying to establish procedures that already exist in these agencies. This delay in establishing policies and procedures has hindered the progress of the Commission's mission to promote the responsible use of OHVs. We surveyed 10 western states, all of which have OHV programs similar in nature to Nevada's program. In all these states, the OHV programs are hosted by a state agency or state agencies. The host agency provides administrative and budgetary support. 7 of the states surveyed have OHV commissions that act in an advisory role, while 3 have no OHV commissions. Based on our survey, only Nevada has an independent OHV commission not hosted by an executive branch agency. In the states with advisory commissions, grant functions such as approval, monitoring are segregated between the Commission and the host agency to provide appropriate checks and balances. In Nevada, all those functions of granting funds reside with the Nevada OHV Commission with no oversight from an executive branch agency. We recommend the Commission should consider seeking legislation to be hosted by a state agency. Being hosted by a state agency would provide the Commission administrative and budgetary support, as well as ensure proper checks and balances. The second part of this objective deals with seeking other funding sources to defray the costs of the host agency. Presently, the only source of funding for the Commission is the portion of OHV registration fees. We surveyed other states regarding additional funding sources for their OHV programs. We identified 2 additional sources of funding used by these states, namely the Federal Recreational Trails Program RTP funds and fuel tax allocation. 5 of the surveyed states use RTP funds for OHV projects. In Nevada, the Division of State Parks receives approximately $1.5 million of RTP funds, 30% of which is designated for OHV projects. Currently, there's no coordination between the Commission and state parks as to how these funds are expended. 8 of the states surveyed also supplement OHV program funding with an allocation of fuel tax dollars. The amount of fuel tax dollars allocated to the OHV program is based on studies of fuel consumed by OHVs, which they believe contribute directly to the state's highway funds. We recommend the Commission should consider seeking other funding sources to defray the cost of the host agency. Seeking other funding sources will not only defray the cost of the host agency, but will also ensure the continued viability of the OHV program. We want to take this opportunity to thank all the commissioners that met with us while we were preparing this report. And, that concludes the presentation.
Very good, Vita. Comments by the commissioners on the recommendations? Any objections or qualifications to their support? I'm not sure Vegas or Elko heard that. I'm bringing the discussion back to the commissioners, and if they have, if they support the recommendations here, if there's some qualifying statements on some of the recommendations, waiting to hear from the group.
Good.
Commissioner Jackson.
Commissioner Lamb.
Hang on, Gary. I'll get you next.
I'm interested in the audit part in reference to the DMV. I've long said that we need more defined information from DMV. I know that DMV will be. I've got a proposed bill which is going to be going before the legislature to have their actual costs be paid by the fees as opposed to just a percentage. This seems to be supported by the audit that it would be a good thing for us, and that if there's money left over, it would automatically come to us because we'd just be paying DMV their costs. But the other part that I think we have to be very wary of is making sure that when that bill goes forward, that we do get some amendments in the bill which give us some control and also give us daylight as to the actual costs that DMV are incurring, so we can make sure that the public monies are spent properly. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Lambert?
For the record, Commissioner Lambert, so thank you very much for the audit. It was very educational. I agree with some of the points that Mr. Jackson just brought up. I would also point out that the transition based upon the math of the $85,000 advertising to the growth of the OHV funds is probably the one flaw I see in the audit, in the fact that the law was motivated for a lot of people, the motivation for a lot of people, and the communication was just to let them know about the law. The law was communicated also in places like the AMA and third parties and earned advertising. We have an ability to reach out and get help from others, and I hope that we start to explore the people that have the ability to reach out to the blogs, newsletters, and actual national magazines to get our story told a little better. I don't think the $150,000 expenditure is going to bump us to 50% compliance as a magic pill, but I do encourage us to work really hard to get our story told more effectively. So I appreciate the audit. It was a tremendous piece of workmanship. The only real flaw I see is that they claim that all of the sign-ups were because of the $85,000. Simply, a lot of it is because the law was out there, and that the clubs and organizations began to talk about it. As we begin to add and pay grant cycles, and the clubs and organizations can validate that the commission's on the right point, we will gain participation. a lot of the trips I go on probably only have as little as 4 and 5% compliance, and sometimes 20 and 25 because the people have been around. But our compliance level is pathetic today, so we need more outreach. Thank you very much for the audit.
Commissioner Elmore?
This is Commissioner Elmore for the record. I guess I have one question for Rita. The audit team seems to, in their report, seems to provide some specific recommendations on if we were to be hosted through DMV fully to seek other funds. You give some specifics on where some additional funds can come from. Where I don't see specifics is in the second section, your third recommendation, where it's consider developing and implementing procedures to ensure funds are expended for OHV enforcement and public outreach. And I guess I'm curious, do you guys see something specific that we're not already doing in this fun exercise that we've been trying to do for 3 years? And so while this seems to be somewhat critical of guys like me who've been sitting here for 3 years trying to do this exact same thing, I'm curious, do you guys have any bright ideas on how we can do this any better with the constraints that we're working with NRS? Because I don't see them in this audit report.
Thank you. That's a very good question. I know you guys have had difficulties, with the commission. We're not trying to be critical of the commission. We're just presenting, possible solutions. And part of what we were trying to say in public outreach and enforcement efforts is that, for most of the states that we looked at, public outreach, getting the word out there, helps the program grow. And without enforcement, if you're not citing people and giving them tickets, then nothing is going to happen. If I know that if I drive my OHV around, that a law enforcement officer sees me and they just give me a warning, I continue to do it and they don't give me any ticket, what compels me to comply? So not only is the public outreach, you're also getting $200,000 that should go into law enforcement. And both of those combined should actually help this program move forward. And the reason nothing is happening, we're not saying that, you guys are not doing stuff, but this, writing the grant programs and stuff, it has actually stopped you guys from moving forward. That's why the money hasn't gotten out. But once the money goes out and people start doing something, we believe that compliance will increase.
This is Commissioner Elmer. I appreciate the explanation. I guess what sticks out to me is that nowhere in this audit report does it mention that we're truly trying to do that, and that we're taking the process. It says develop regulations. It doesn't say has regulation development in the process, and so that's what I take as being critical, is that there doesn't seem to be any acknowledgement that we have been trying, and one of the unifying things on this commission across all the commissioners is the need for public outreach and enforcement. And the fact is that we have tried and have continually been bogged down in process administration and trying to do exactly what we know we need to do. The audit report just seems to lack any notion that that's exactly what we've been doing. It suggests that we've been sitting up here idle, twiddling our thumbs, and while the appearance may be that that's the case because we've been able to get very little done, I think that certainly the commissioners, anybody who's been involved, members of the public, Leo, would say that, hey, we have been trying. We just have found one pitfall after another pitfall after another pitfall. Some of it to do with statute, some of it to do with the lack of hand-holding, as I call it, from or lack of direction within the state. We were just kind of put up here and thrown out there and fed to the wolves, and now we're finding carcasses laying around every corner. So that was the only thing that I noticed. I thought there was some very good stuff in here. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that we have been trying to give money for enforcement and public outreach. We just haven't been to a point where we could actually get that done.
Good.
Go ahead.
John Griggs.
Go ahead, John.
John, you to go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Rizzuti, thank you for your work. It was very well done, and I enjoyed my visit with you personally. kind of expand on Commissioner Elmore, and my own question is about the partner with a state agency. To me, that was kind of a solution for what Mr. Elmore was talking about, was that if we'd have partnered with a state agency, we could have avoided some of the pitfalls and carcasses that we've stumbled across. The thing to me, though, is, do you have a recommendation what state agency we should partner with? We haven't actually really been loved by any of them so far.
Thank you. Before I address that, let me address Mr. Elmore's concern. Mr. Elmore, we met with several of the commissioners, and you guys are some of the hardest working, volunteers that I've seen in the state. So I want to make that clear. So it wasn't, our audit wasn't, to say that you guys are not doing something. We're trying to point something out. You guys are working very hard, and we appreciated that when we met a lot of you. So the commission is doing a great job, but you've been hampered by other factors that is beyond your control. If we missed it in our audit, I apologize, for missing that part of it, because you guys are working very hard. To address what you just asked, we actually met with the Division of Wildlife as well as state parks. State parks, to us, seems to be, the one that will probably work best, because they are already receiving money for off-highway vehicles. However, when we talked to them, they said that one of the problems, of doing that is, where is the money going to come for the administrative stuff? Because it's going to take them hiring, other personnel to actually manage that part of it. So that's why we looked at different other sources of funding, and the RTP funds can be part of it, plus whatever you guys are already getting. And we are hoping that when enforcement and public outreach, starts moving forward, that there's going to be more money in this program to actually make things work. So, but their concern is, where the funds going to be coming from. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Lambert.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record. I've basically got 2 points. As to, we're the only state that has an independent commission, independent from all state organizations. That was done deliberately. The legislation was very well aware of what other states were doing. And there were a lot of objections to having us attached to a state agency. The word independent was bandied around a lot, and it was deliberate that we were an independent of any agency. I would take to the point, and again, I don't have the actual numbers in front of me, but I know Parks and Recreation has been receiving money which is designated for OHV, and I'm not going to get into this argument or debate, but it is believed by many members of the public and many organizations that that money has not been spent on OHV. And I've heard this from lots and lots of constituents. So again, I think we'd have to be very, very careful about partnering with an agency. And again, this was set up deliberately to be independent. As to another point, it's sort of a, if you look on your agenda number 9, there's basically the NRS 490.069 seems to state, and I know there's some argument, some discussion over this as to what this actually means, and Raylene, you may want to weigh in on this, whether or not we do...
Mr. Jackson?
Ma'am?
I'm trying to figure out why you're moving to that item of the agenda. Does it relate to...
If you give me latitude for 1 second, I'll show you.
Okay.
All right. Being that money does not seem to fall in our purview as being granted, then as of January 1, we could take 20% of that money and basically hand it over to the criminal justice for them to distribute it among law enforcement. If we did that, that would fall in line with one of the recommendations by the audit that we do get money out there. And law enforcement, and I've spoken to several members of law enforcement, especially sheriff's departments, who seem to feel that they would use the money to educate, give warnings, and promote the program more than just write tickets. So that might be...
Long legs.
All right. So that might be a short-term answer. And the reason I say that now instead of taking it to item 9 is because in item 9, the scope is to look for an advisor, not to make recommendations, and I didn't want to get slapped on the wrist by Raylene. So, stick a fork in me, I'm done.
But you're right. You're right. You found a way to do it.
Okay, Commissioner Lambert, go ahead.
Commissioner Lambert, for the record, some of the things that Mr. Jackson just pointed out really do ring home today. We have the only state in the West that has no OHV trails in it. I've had a long conversation with the Federal Highway Transportation Authority that provides the RTP money to Nevada over the frustration of having filed an exemption for not funding the 33% minimum for motorized vehicles. For, I think it was 23 years we failed to make the actual minimum contribution to off-highway vehicles. So for me personally, at this point in time, and something I got involved with well before the commission was trying to get involvement, people to find out why OHV was treated so poorly in a state where it was so important. We do several $billion a year in OHV. Before I could even consider us to move into an agency, which I could see some benefit to being in an agency, I would have to find an agency that was truly the friend of OHV. I hope that that changes with our friends that have a great deal of money to help OHV with. But at the point of this date, I am not readily convinced that they are OHV friendly in the state of Nevada at parks, is that we are the only western state with no OHV trails, and the only state I was able to find that had not made their 30% minimum contribution of RTP money, and for sure the only state that was filing an exemption that had been removed over 5 years ago, looking for it to be okay to authorize not doing what they've been asked to do. So there's a problem there right now. I think they're working on it, and I truly hope that OHV becomes more important to the Division of Natural Resources and State Parks. But today, they're involved with the money that should be going to the user groups, but it's not been getting there very well. So that's just my personal opinion. I've been involved with many clubs and grant organizations in multiple states. Nevada has some work to do for that agency to be able to host the OHV Commission, in my opinion. Thank you very much.
Commissioner McKay, for the record, I actually had a suggestion by our governor a month ago that Nevada has a Department of State grants, and they offer free services that can be used as far as outreach, administration, tracking, all that type of stuff related to grants, they might be a solution for our purposes to put that administration and procedures and stuff in, but still allowing us the autonomy of picking the grant recipient. So it's just a matter for consideration, further discussion in the future. Any other commissioners? Comments?
This is Commissioner Baker.
Go ahead, Sue.
I just have a question with regard to the out-of-state decals and the revenue that you projected we might collect if we initiated that process. And I just wanted to clarify, your intentions were to still allow reciprocity with all the states that support it and only sell them to the states that don't. And I guess on your list, that's just Colorado and Wyoming. Because I'm thinking like what Gary said, a lot of California people would come over to the north, but we wouldn't require it of them. I just wanted your clarification if I understand that right.
In our report, we talked to, we try to estimate, how much out-of-state OHVs that we have, that actually come into Nevada, and, some, we don't have something that addresses, the number of days that they stay or the people that don't have a registration in their own state. So our calculation was actually based on, the estimated number of OHVs from out of state that are coming into the state, and using that $20 that you guys are already charging, and then taking out what the expenses are. That's how we came up with the 144. So we still have the reciprocity that we offer to other states. But once they overstay or they don't have any registration, because most of the other states, still have reciprocity. Almost everybody has some kind of reciprocity, but they still require, out-of-staters to buy, a decal. Does that help?
For more than 15 days. Huh? For more than 15 days?
Yeah, for more than 15 days. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Any further comments by the commissioners?
Okay.
Any comments?
Commissioner Drew.
Oh, boy, Michael.
Sorry. Commissioner Giroux for the record. And again, thank you for that report. I think it was pretty eye-opening. I had one quick question, and I guess it just, in your research, you're showing all this money that's going to Parks and Rec that's due for the off-road community, and it seems like we have to partner with another agency to get that money.
That money, I believe, there needs to be some kind of a dialogue between your commission and state parks, on how or what this money can be used for. Because it has some strings that ties to it. But that's something that the commission will have to work out with state parks. But there's money there that are actually designated for OHV projects, almost 30%, So I'm not sure if that answers your question.
Commissioner Giroux, I guess it kind of does. It just opens up more questions, and again, I'm here representing the people that ride, and that to me, simple math. If there's $1.5 million and 33% due for the off-roaders, that's $500,000 a year that should be going into, any kind of, whether it be trails, whether it be management, whether it be like down in Vegas, like Sioux, they're looking for more, riding areas for our people. And if this has been going on for the last 20 plus years, again, I'm a simple math guy. That seems like a lot of money that's just being taken away from, the Nevada citizens. So I guess I'd like to have more discussion on that, and I think the commissioner or the commission as a body needs to do some more research on that, because that to me is just a huge amount of resource that we need to put back to our people. So, thank you.
Just
Commissioner Jackson?
Commissioner Jackson, for the record. Just one point. The Parks and Recreation are supposed to have somebody on our commission, and they've failed to add somebody to the commission. And I personally have made several phone calls and asked them to get that done. So, just for the record, there is supposed to be communication. There is supposed to be somebody on our commission. Thank you.
Very good. Any further commissioner comments? Any comments from the public on this item? Want to stay where we are? Let's take that. Whatever.
There's a public comment in Vegas.
Okay, hang on, Charlie.
Mr. McKay.
He has it.
Okay, my name is Doug Holcomb from the Pine Nut Mountains Trail Association here in Gardnerville. I have a couple of thoughts reading the audit last night. With the DMV, I definitely think that you should seek legislation so that the commission obtains any OHV revenue and expense. Also, definitely get the revenue and expense data, and you need to get the excess money transferred to the back into the commission. I also think that you should not require out-of-state decals for OHV users who have home state decals. I believe in the reciprocity. If they're paying for decals in their home state, then they will allow Nevada residents into the other state. They should allow Nevada residents into the other state. As far as the commission being hosted by another state agency, at this time I think that the commission is finally on the right track and should not be under the umbrella of another state agency. And if so, the commission, I believe, has to have absolute control of all the OHV registration funds. Absolute control of all the funds. The simplest example is next door in California. The state parks, how much money has the state park spent that should have gone to OHV projects? And I completely encourage the commission to seek an allocation of the fuel tax dollars. I know virtually nothing about that, except for the fact that I spend an awful lot of gas money on my OHV that never touches a highway. So, yeah, I think that's great. As far as compliance, and one thing that the audit didn't mention and probably doesn't realize because they're not out there recreating, I don't know if you are or not, but the compliance issue was and still is attitude. Forever, from day one, the first time an OHV hit a dirt road in Nevada, until just recently, there has been no need for registration. So the attitude of the longtime OHV people in Nevada is, some of it's, they got to catch me, which is a horrible attitude. A lot of it is, I'm just not going to do it, all that. This attitude is changing. It's slowly changing, and I think that this commission, and once we start getting some good stuff happening out there, once we start getting some grant projects awarded and the grant projects completed, I think that that attitude is going to change a lot, and I think that that's going to increase compliance. I hope so. Thank you.
Go ahead, Larry. And Charlie, and I'll come right back to you.
Larry Calkins, Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association. Again, I'd like to thank the authors of this study, and it not only opened our eyes, but it also affirmed a lot of things that we already knew. A couple comments on behalf of our association, and that is that in regard to public outreach and law enforcement, we've always said, quote, education before enforcement. So, therefore, you need to get out there, and the association or the commission needs to, of course, increase its public image. Right now, in talking to members that have had stickers and have not renewed, they say, we don't see that our money's ever done anything. And I think that's the public view right now, and the reason for the non-renewals going on. On the point of hosting by another state agency, I feel that based upon what's happened in other states, especially California, administration fees for the hosting agency are going to come off the top of this. And the political influence through the host commission is going to kill this. So a couple recommendations. Continue to investigate whether being hosted by a state agency. But the Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association feels a successful independent commission is very possible. And continue to seek gasoline federal recreational trails monies. Those belong to us, and it is things that we need to get a hold of. Looking at the listing in the audit of the states that have state gasoline sales tax monies, we're sadly lacking on the ability to get a hold of that, and I think that that ought to be part of what's submitted on our bill recommendation. Thank you.
Scott? Yeah, I probably should. Charlie, thanks for waiting. You want to go ahead and make some comments?
Okay. I'd like to speak to the compliance issue as well. Commissioner Lambert said that we have no OHV in Nevada, and I think probably what he meant to say is we have no official OHV in Nevada, because Nevada has, I'm guessing, one of the most extensive networks of roads and trails of any state in the U.S. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. And when I hear...
Commissioner Lambert?
Hang on, Gary. Someone's still speaking. We'll get to you next. Please continue, sir.
Okay, thank you. When I hear that the compliance is, I think somebody mentioned 10%, I think that's amazingly low. Some of the other gentlemen alluded to the fact that the users probably don't see a need. And I think, I've heard some talk about enforcement, increasing enforcement. And I think you need to be realistic on what enforcement would mean. It's a huge state out there, and I know that I've been riding with friends, and if I lose sight of them for 10 seconds, sometimes I lose sight of them. You're not going to have effective enforcement unless you have helicopters and observation towers. That's just the reality. The state's too big. So why even try it? What I would encourage this commission to consider is to try to increase voluntary compliance and try to increase the user's desire to buy the sticker. And the way you would do that is you would create some value for them. If all the money that's collected gets siphoned off to this agency or that agency to pay general overhead, nobody gets a thing out of it. But the state, because it has such an extensive network and very few official routes, you could easily create some official routes similar to the Paiute Trail in Utah. That is, in fact, a tourist attraction. And there's all kinds of things that can be done. Several years ago, I jumped on my motorcycle with two friends, and we completely circled Las Vegas in one day. We mapped out a loop that was 270 miles. Something like that could be attractive to people, so they could try to do the whole thing or try to do part of it. But that's what I would encourage you guys to do to create value for the users. I think your compliance issue would take care of itself. I'm very familiar with the program up in Idaho. I think they have one of the best in the United States. I don't know what the exact figures are, but everybody I know that rides up there has a sticker. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Lambert?
I'd like to clarify something that was stated. I didn't say Nevada doesn't have trail systems. I spend hundreds of days, some years, riding. Nevada has the best trail resource in America. State parks in Nevada has 0 OHV opportunities, is what I said. And that was true the last time I looked, and it's probably true today. They do not have an OHV system in Nevada. The Idaho system actually has 18 groomers as state park employees that go out and take care of downfall, etc. I would welcome someone down there to give that gentleman my phone number. I would really like to talk to him off of the record. Nevada has the best trail assets in the nation, better than Baja. We need to map them to protect them. The actual process of designated routes is pretty cast in stone, clear back from '74. The resource management plan, I would be surprised if we retain 0.5% of the state as open OHV travel by the time the resource management plan is done. There's a great deal of tools that can be used, including submitting your mapping, getting with Leo Drum, getting their stuff to Raul. Give it to me when you map a trail, and I'll see that it gets submitted. There's a bunch of stuff I want to help your group do that can help. My comment was there were no OHV trails in state parks in Nevada. I have personally almost 10,000 miles of single track I ride within 100 miles of my bedroom. Nevada has the best resources. We need to protect them. Each mile of single track is worth as a value to the state of Nevada between $10,000 and $35,000 a mile. If we lose access to those trails because we don't get them submitted, mapped, and designated, are we going to have the strength to stand up and say, can you pay me for what you took from me to the federal government? It would be hard. We need to work to get our designation done very well because the Federal Land Act of '74 told them to manage travel. Mapping the trails and submitting those maps in a timely fashion is the tool that will work within the resource management argument you're having. To argue that it won't go to designated trails, I don't believe we'll win in the long term. But please give me a call, ask one of the commissioners for my cell number. Perhaps we should meet. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Gers with Nevada Trail Stewards. I have to openly and consciously agree with Carrie Lee and Gary Lambert and Doug Holcomb and Larry Calkins on all of their concepts here. I mean, everybody's touched on something that's great. You know, education coming first before enforcement, fuel tax, the RTP, Gary with mapping, and Sheriff Lee with compliance. Something that seems to continue to be overlooked to me and seems to be a simple, inobtrusive type of way to build compliance is to help the states that have reciprocity as well with Nevada to continue as a benefit to promote the adventure tourism in the state and assure that we'll always continue to see this type of growth from other states and tourism. And maybe a simple way to look at this is to boost compliance and require the other states as well as Nevada to move renewals at least from out-of-state residents and refer them to that state's OHV program and have those out-of-staters be registering in their home state to keep the funds here in Nevada, keep California funds in California, be able to benefit the other states by then. And that way that renewal process becomes an automatic process. Because we're going to reach a pinnacle, we're going to reach a cap of how many OHVs we have in the state, but those renewals are going to be an ongoing process. So I think that the ability to kind of benefit those and show the benefits to the other states can really help with that compliance. And a little bit of outreach going to another state's OHV commission can be a big benefit for them as well as Nevada. I think it's a pretty good long-term sustainable concept to keep that revenue and compliance coming in. So, again, thanks for the time and thanks for the open forum.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public? Any other comments from Las Vegas or Elko?
Comment, Elko.
This is John Glenn for the record. And I just wanted to touch on a couple things. Commissioner Jackson stated that the reason we didn't have that we didn't partner with the state agency is quite correct. We wanted to be separate from a state agency without the ability for them to politically coerce us or push us in a direction. So that, and not to mention, nobody wanted to take that process on. DMV was forced upon it by, I believe, Senator Rhodes. He told them that they would do it. So that was one of the reasons that DMV ended up with it, because they were already doing titling, they'd already done registration, and they had previously done titling on OHVs up until I think it was 2005. So anyway, we wanted the commission to remain autonomous, and we wanted the commission to be able to control all the money on dealing with, and then this is touching over onto the law enforcement issue. The law enforcement, the way we looked at it was, yes, 20% was going to go to law enforcement, but that was going to be given to them by a grant basis. When they proposed what they were going to use the money for, it wouldn't just be 20% going to law enforcement. If they couldn't produce a grant for that 20%, then it didn't go to them. That's the way we had envisioned it when we originally wrote it. The other thing too is that just going over what we saw, what we felt was the most important thing in the beginning for the OHV Commission to do and for the grant money to be spent on is, if you own a business and you have no idea what your inventory is, how do you know what it's worth? So at that point, you have to know what your inventory is, and the only way to know that is to map it all and to have a good series of maps working with all the agencies and with the user groups also. But I think you have to have possibly a third party or maybe somebody that is a contractor or something map it. That might be where it's going to cost a lot of money to do that. But at least then you have it. So that's just the comments I have. I think the audit was excellent. I wondered how things were going, and it's very interesting information, and I really appreciate the fact that the audit was done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glenn, and for your previous service. Any further comments? Very well. Chair would entertain a motion to accept this audit and further research its recommendations for further action. Mr. Jackson?
Commissioner Jackson, for the record, I make the motion that we take the audit under consideration, and the individual parts of that audit that we feel necessary to vote on, that we do at the next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Drew, I'll second that.
Very good. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, I call for the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any no's? Very well. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now the big one.
This is going to take forever. Depends on.
Would everyone consider a 10-minute
Yes.
break, and then I think we can probably finish the rest of it within the hour. Is there any objection?
Optimism.
We'll take a 10-minute break.
That's pretty optimistic.
Reopen at 10 to 12.
That's pretty optimistic. What do we do? Look, not look if we grant this money, we're going to get back to we can ask
Customers, I'm very familiar with
It's our money.
I have a very expectations. I think you need some thoughts about that shot. Twice.
I can go to Mr. Chairman. I can
You have to do that any salesman comes with. You can't do whatever.
I can rearrange
I just sit there.
Some people do. The hard part is.
Okay, everyone. All right. Let's go ahead and call this meeting back in order at 5 to 12. It's going to take one small change in the agenda. I'm going to move the D&B report up, A, because it's quick, and B, we don't have to have the three of them sit here all day. So, could we get our D&B report, Doreen, and you can come right up here if you wish.
Change that on me while I was having a snack.
Literally.
All right. Department of Motor Vehicles, Doreen Rigsby for the record. And I just wanted to let everybody know our numbers right now. As of December 31st, 2014, the OHV commission revenue is $372,593.25. The last bi-monthly deposit was $33,728. DMV's revenue was $237,472, and that includes the VIN assignments, late fees, and titles. Year to date, the registrations are 48,636. Renewals are 29,258. The duplicate decals are 402, and titles are 19,472. Okay. Anything you'd like?
There was another sentence on here. There may be discussion and motion to create a more detailed report providing better transparency between the DMV and the Commission. Doreen had submitted a sample report just the other day. I didn't think it was timely enough to distribute and be thought about by the Commission. We will forward her email to the Commissioners in a matter of days, and we'll put that on discussion on next month's DMV report.
Is that discussion of action as well? As an action item, right?
Yeah, there's not going to. We just accept the DMV report, and the new report will be disseminated at the next meeting.
My apologies, Paul Jackson for the record. Will we be putting something on the agenda next week or next month for an action item, which would allow us to be able to accept the new report? Start with the new report.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any questions of Doreen by the Commissioners?
I've got a quick question.
Okay, go ahead, Michael.
Commissioner Giroux, for the record, are you going to be leaving after this, or are you going to stay through Section 8? Because I do have a question that I'd like to get clarified when we get into that of DMV.
In Section 8, I didn't bring my
Oh, that's the next
Memo?
one.
We're here. We're staying.
Oh, legislative priority? Yes, I can hang out for that. It's very interesting.
Sorry about that. Just
Very good. Thank
Okay.
you, Lori. Thank you, Lori.
A quick question. Would it be possible to have the DMV report put on a piece of paper that we can pick up over there and/or even post on the website?
That's what we're trying to get to.
Yeah, that's what we're going to bring up in the next meeting. They've been given just kind of what we discussed, and again, it's Doreen for the record.
Yeah, please repeat the question because they can't hear it in Vegas.
And the question was if this would be posted website or at the next meeting. What we did is Mr. McKay and I had kind of discussed what kind of expenses that he wanted to see, what kind of revenues, how it broke down within our department as transparent. And we just started with the rough draft, and he got it a couple of days ago, and I know this agenda was pretty full. So as we work together and everybody else in the commission starts giving more feedback, we can either make adjustments to this or anything like that. I do believe, and it will be up to the commission, but I believe they will share that.
Yeah, it's just that you go through these numbers, and it's so quick, I haven't got time to take and then write them all down. So
I'll give you
it
my
just
memo.
to go back to our organizations and explain what's going on, the numbers come in pretty handy.
Okay. I do know, I don't have exact numbers, but something else that I know come up in a couple of conversations previously. The renewals of the vehicles, we have a snapshot in time that tells us how many vehicles are actively registered in the OHV unit. And then we look at the new registrations year to date, and we are almost 10,000 short. And I don't know if that's 10,000 people that moved out of the state or they just didn't renew.
All right, thank you. Item number 8 is discussion of the legislative priorities for the Commission's 2015 legislative session for discussion and possible action. I put this on here. The first part was from the last meeting that we had motions to require Nevada residents to have a Nevada off-highway vehicle sticker, exploring the option of the DMV doing vehicle inspections, limiting the late fees for OHV stickers, exploring other sticker options, including retail distribution, an attestation process for registering, the possible privatization of OHV sticker sales, creating a seat on the commission for a Jeep four-wheel drive representation. And then we just had our audit presentation, and some of the recommendations presented in the audit that may influence our legislative priorities were allowing for excess funds to be given to the commission from the DMV, allowing a portion of the state gas tax to be dedicated to the commission, develop a transparent monthly revenue expense report for the commission prepared by the DMV and the commission, possibly allowing the sale of out-of-state OHV stickers, and the feasibility of being hosted by another state agency. So I just wanted to have a little board discussion on those new legislative priorities and any additions the commissioners want to add, so we have direction to go forward.
Could we go through those one at a time? Maybe discuss them
Sure.
one at a time? That would be easier.
And would it be appropriate to do the ones that we already made a motion on last, or just the ones that came about during discussion?
See if there's any comments.
Okay. All right. It's been suggested and a good idea I go through these items one by one as far as prioritized issues. Requiring Nevada residents to have a Nevada off-highway vehicle stickers. Is there any discussion by the commission and they accept that?
Is Mr. Kruger, he's the rep? Is he not here?
Commissioner Lambert, for the record, I strongly support that measure. A lot of people in the South are Nevada residents, and they're buying Arizona and Utah stickers because there's so few riding opportunities in Southern Nevada. So I do support that.
Anyone have a problem with that? And in the north, there's quite a few California stickers that get sold by Nevada OHVers. Very well. Exploring the option of the DMV to do vehicle inspections. we're going to explore that option with them. Okay. Eliminating late fees for OHV stickers. I think that's probably 80% of the complaints we're getting from our present operators as far as an issue with them. It's about 2% of the revenue to the DMV present. So it might be a great customer service thing. Go ahead, Darrell.
This is Commissioner Elm. I'd like to go back to exploring the option of having the Department of Motor Vehicles. One thing I just thought of is, given the previous discussions about the DMV giving us anything beyond their expenses, we have to be mindful of that if we ask them to do VIN inspections, which they previously didn't want to do because of the associated expense. And so therefore our slice of the pie would be getting potentially significantly smaller if we were to levy that recommendation on them, and that the fee structure was to change or the disbursement structure was to change. So I think we have to be mindful of that one.
It could not only to set that type of program up, there'd be some computer program type implementation expenses, but no, we're basically we're just going to consider it, explore it.
This is Commissioner Lee.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
Just maybe I'm misunderstanding, but when a VIN inspection takes place, that means that a title is going to be issued. You don't have to do a VIN inspection if you're just renewing or if it's something like that. DMV's already getting paid for titling, and they keep 100% of the titling. We don't get any of it. They keep all the titling money. So I would be a little hesitant to think that it's going to cost them a lot more. We've been doing all the VIN inspections at the sheriff's office. We haven't been paid a dime. We don't expect any money. It's a one piece of paper that you fill out. So I don't know that it is a huge expense for DMV to do it. It actually would increase their funding, not decrease their funding. It would increase their funding.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Elmore?
This is Commissioner Elmore for the record. Sheriff Lee, I absolutely agree with you. At the same time, I do believe that I specifically asked this question to a DMV representative several meetings ago, and that the actual expense in doing the VIN inspection was one of the main reasons why that was pretty much off the table with DMV from the beginning. They certainly didn't believe that when they were receiving the 85% of the $20, and definitively not when they're now getting the 15%, that they were covering that expense. So I think the question needs to be asked what that expense would be, or if it's likely that we're going down that disbursement route. I think we definitely need to be mindful of this one.
Go ahead.
This is Commissioner Lee.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
Yeah, Darren, I think you're right. I just know that even the audit showed that there was a surplus of money in DMV. So I just really can't see that a VIN inspection takes that much manpower. I really would have a hard time believing that. Like I said, it's one piece of paper, but like I said, I don't know. But I'm just throwing that out there, just to remember that they keep 100% of the title money. And normally, when a VIN inspection is done, a title is being produced because the inspection is being done. You don't do a VIN inspection every time. And I think once a lot of the old OHVs get registered, the VIN inspections will take a decrease, because the VIN inspection can be done at the time when one's sold new. So I think there'll be a decrease. There's an increase initially, but after a few years, after the old ones get registered, you'll see a decrease of VIN inspections. But like I said, we're doing them now, and we haven't had a problem with it, and we don't charge anybody anything for a VIN inspection.
Commissioner Joe, for the record, just to follow up with that, Commissioner Lee, one thing that I'm seeing is that we're going to be asking for that additional money that was left over with DMV. So I guess my thing would be not, I wouldn't be as supportive of it, because I could see them just, hitting us with some pretty good fees as far as to staff people to just do VIN inspections. And if you take that throughout the whole state, that they could run that bill up pretty big on us. So, and I think you are right. As the older stuff gets registered, the only VIN inspection is going to be anything out of state or anything that hasn't been previously registered. So it's going to basically clean itself up, I think, through the long run. So.
Okay. Just one quick thing.
Go ahead, Darren.
This is Commissioner Elmore. I do agree that VIN inspections currently are going to get lower and lower and lower, but we're looking at a 10-20% compliance rate. So that there's 80% of the vehicles that still haven't been VIN'd, those all have to be VIN'd, and then it will start to be a diminishing number. So that currently, yes, it's a diminishing number, but it's a very small number of the total pie. And so we have to get the high compliance via other means, get through all of those VIN inspections, and then it will be a sliding scale. But there's still a significant number of them that haven't been done.
And Commissioner McKay, for the record, I think part of the problem too is that a typical inspection program is like a federal highway funding type mechanism, and this is a little different than off-road. So, but again, we're just exploring the option. I think we can discuss and really get down to what the real details are before we decide to move forward on that part. Doreen, you want to add something to the discussion?
Doreen Rigsby, for the record. I have the audit in front of me, and I know that when he was describing about a different funding model, that's all OHV fees. That would be VIN inspection, that would be titles, that would be registration, that would be late fees. If you kept all of that, then it would be, we would keep our administrative fees, plus a little extra, everything else would go over. So it wouldn't be that DMV would be keeping it if this happens this way. Do you understand what I mean? No?
It's time for motion to be able to add it.
Excuse me?
Is it time for motion to...
Sure, I'll entertain a motion on this topic.
Commissioner Jackson. Commissioner Jackson, I'd make a motion that we drop the requirement, or we drop from our list of things we would like to see in legislation the inspection of VINs by DMV.
Do you have a second?
Commissioner Lambert, I'll second that. I don't think DMV really wants the job.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Well, yeah.
All right, I was a little quick on that.
Responding.
Go ahead, Mr. Lambert.
I believe that there's some other avenues that we can look at in the future. One of the avenues that I find very positive is for clubs, organizations, or associations to partner with a dealer and to do outreach, allowing that club or organization and individual that works under the dealer's authority to fall within the current guidelines to go out to remote locations such as Sand Mountain for Halloween with 10,000 vehicles there and make a major improvement in our compliance. I don't believe that that would require any legislation or differential intent or the involvement of the DMV. It simply requires the commission to be knowledgeable of it, and a dealer and an association or associations and clubs and dealers get together and help to work through a program that can work, because the participation of the public and a relationship with a dealer could greatly improve VIN inspections. There are places where you could do 20,000 VIN inspections in one weekend. For instance, Sand Mountain, Halloween. That would double our current compliance in short order. Thank you.
VIN inspection doesn't guarantee compliance, though.
Any other comments?
I think that's this Commissioner Richardson, for the record. You're asking a lot for people to comply with an inspection that they would have to go someplace else to do the registration for. I mean, just because you inspect it, that doesn't guarantee compliance. From my own experience, I had to go to the highway patrol office by my house to get my sticker inspected, and they didn't charge me. Of course, as has already been mentioned,
So I'm not quite sure that would be a method.
Mr. Burris?
Sorry, I'm trying to make this short. I know that we spoke, Scott Burris with Nevada Trail Service, I know we spoke about the concept of allowing a third party, an authorized third party, to do on-site inspections. So much like Commissioner Lambert just spoke about going to large events and being able to monitor these events and do vehicle inspections and possibly sticker sales at that time is a huge benefit to the state, helping to boost compliance.
If there wasn't a compliance piece.
Commissioner Giroux for the record. Just going to take a dealer side of it. I think the idea is great, but boy, when you start having your dealership signing on something that you're having a third party do, it just, I know from my personal point, the liability side of it, I wouldn't be, on that page. Now, that doesn't mean you couldn't get, whether it be sheriffs, state, something like that, if you could get them to come out, at say a VIN inspection party for all the off-roaders and make it real easy. The other side of that would be, like Gary had said, you can go to Sand Mountain and have 20,000 people all at once. Well, that would be a great place to not only do a VIN inspection, but also complete the whole registration process and have it ready to mail in for people. I think if you made it easy, again, you'd get more compliance that way as well. So.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record, just to clarify things, the motion on the table only refers to VIN inspections by the Department of Motor Vehicles. And all we're saying in the motion is that we would not support a bill that would require them, the Department of Motor Vehicles, to do VIN inspections. That's all this is.
Larry?
Getting in and out of these seats. Larry Cochran, Nevada four-wheel drive. The only thing it says, a simple sentence says explore. You can't explore anything until you get a quote or an idea from DMV of what it is that would finish it up, at which time then, if it's exorbitant, so be it. It's certainly handy.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record, the only issue is that we have a time constraint. February 2nd, even before our next meeting, the legislature starts to meet. We are late into this game. We need to get our act together and decide what we're going to look for and what we're not going to look for. We don't have any time to explore, unless you want to wait 2 years. Thank you.
Very good. Any further discussion? Call for the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Very well. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
So,
next topic was eliminating late fees for OHV stickers. Anyone have an issue with that?
Commissioner Jackson, for the record, there is already a bill draft request in the Senate to eliminate late fees. I think we should support it, and that bill may get changed a little bit, and some things added to it and some things taken away. Those of you who are familiar with the process know that amendments come in, and the amendments sometimes can have nothing to do with the original bill. But as it sits right now, there is a bill draft request in the Senate which would eliminate late fees, and I think we should support it.
Commissioner Lane.
Go ahead, Gary.
Commissioner Lambert, for the record. Thank you, Chairman. It has been a great complaint, and I don't believe that the late fee falls within the legislative intent, because it was very clear during the legislative session last round that people were in favor of being able to use vehicles on private land and to register them when they use them. I believe that a lot of the non-compliance and non-renewal comes from the $30 fee that goes to DMV when one isn't re-registered within 12 months. That late fee was not the intent that I heard in the room. I would support legislation to remove the late fee, as these vehicles are sometimes not used for a year or two at a time. It wasn't really our intent to have a fee on vehicles that were used on ranches or husbandry, although they may get used to go trucker hunting, or they may get used to go to the sand dunes on Halloween. The late fee is inappropriate. I support that move.
Commissioner Giroux, for the record. I also have had a lot of, people having a problem with the late fee. One discussion, which I think, I don't know if we've gone down this route, but there was no provision to have a non-op, be able to come into play. I mean, obviously, if you have a registered automobile that, you're not using, you still have to go to DMV and say, well, it's non-op, and it basically just suspends it. When you make it operational again, you're not paying a late fee or you're not paying a penalty. That would be such an easy provision to put in, which still gives, a little bit of, teeth into the people that are just not registering because they don't want to. I mean, if you don't have a penalty, then why would anyone want to register, since there is no reason to, right? So that's my only opinion.
This is Commissioner Lee.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
I would echo Commissioner Giroux's things. I agree wholeheartedly. I know that when you go to register a vehicle that has been non-operational, you fill out a form that DMV has, and maybe DMV can tell us what that is, but I think it's a non-operational form. I know that as we've got those emails from people that were upset about the late fees, I think some of them were from snowmobilers that said, hey, there's been no snow. Well, then fill out a non-operational form and submit it, and you don't get a late fee. But I do have a little bit of a fear if you eliminate late fees altogether. I don't know if it would encourage people to not register them until they felt like they wanted to or whatever. I don't know. I like the non-operational form better.
This is Commissioner Elmore. I guess I'm curious, if we eliminate late fees, are we just further funneling our cash flow? Everybody's just going to register in the spring. They're going to use their vehicle for the summer, and then nobody's going to renew come fall. Sportsmen maybe if they're going hunting or whatever. But if the bulk of the recreation is in the summer, you would naturally be forcing people. The reality is they're not going to do it until they have to, and so you're just funneling your cash flow into a very, very narrow cycle as opposed to spreading it out. That may be advantageous, it may not, but I think that it could potentially be a reality.
Mr. Jackson?
Would other members of the commission, we've cut the baby in half, would other members of the commission be happier if it said eliminate late fees for OHV stickers for vehicles that have been non-operational or have been out of state or stored on private land or used on private land? Would that make it more palatable?
Any objection to that proposal by anyone in the commission? Go ahead, Michael.
As a statement, Commissioner Lambert, for the record, it just seems that those other avenues are slightly more cumbersome than just getting with the business of giving tickets for non-registered vehicles and doing the enforcement job at hand. I'm going to probably stand pretty strong on removing the late fee. I don't like additional paperwork. I'm not very fond of the non-op affidavit and attestation. DMV's costs will go up if we do that because they'll have another form to administer. Thank you.
Okay. What's the general consensus? And we had pretty good discussion. Do we want to move forward on eliminating that? Do we want to move on trying to get a non-operation permit for OHVs?
Commissioner McKay, Commissioner Lambert, for the record,
Go ahead.
I move that we approach it as eliminating the late fee as stated on the line item. That's the motion.
All right. Do we have a second?
John Griggs, second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I thought we already had a motion on the floor by Mr. Jackson.
We did. No, that was not a
It
motion.
was a proposal.
Proposal. That was not a motion.
No, you had made a motion.
No, on the first one, not on this one.
Yeah.
I
It
just
was
said
just a proposal, so probably make a motion on that. So how do you sit there in Vegas on the current motion of eliminating the late fee?
He did call for the vote.
So
I can call for it again.
are we still in discussion?
Yes, please do that.
Can be.
Just have one question. This is Commissioner Richardson. Where's the penalty for a late registration? Where is it? You're just telling me there isn't one.
There is.
Is that okay? I guess so.
No, re-registration. You could register your vehicle.
Late fee for OHV. Late fees. Where's the penalty for registration?
$30 penalty, $3.
It's either registered or it isn't.
Are we tripping over the fact that there's a penalty or the amount of the penalty?
I think both.
So would you propose lowering the penalty?
Well, Commissioner Elmore made a good point. Is there's got to be some sort of penalty for a late registration, whether that be monetary penalty or a use penalty or something like that. I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong to say there shouldn't be any penalties or there should be penalties. I'm just saying what keeps people honest?
Incentive.
You know, if I'm going to
Mr. Chairman, we don't know who spoke.
This is Commissioner Richardson.
And I couldn't hear him either.
You might have to go back to the mic and make a comment.
I can't drag it anymore.
All right, I'll go through that again. Commissioner Richardson, I just want to if we're not going to hold people accountable for late registrations, then I just think, just to echo Commissioner Elmore's concern, is we're giving them, where's the checks and balances, where's the oversight? There's no incentive to register. Does that make sense? Are we worried about the cost of the late fee, or just the late fee, or the late registration in general? I mean, what are we talking about? Where's the incentive to register if you're not going to pay a penalty? If that makes sense.
John Griggs.
Go ahead, John.
I see it as the opposite, I guess, myself, which is why I voted for the motion. The late fee is a disincentive to register. The incentive to register is the ticket that you get when you operate your OHV illegally. Also, the incentive to register is what we should be working on, is the benefit of the registration.
Go ahead, Darren.
This is Commissioner Elmore.
Hang on, Darren.
This is Commissioner Elmore. John, I totally agree with you. I think that it circles back to the enforcement issue. Currently, I believe, right now in Nevada, when you register a boat, seasonal use, similar to OHV, let's say, you register a boat with the Department of Wildlife, you're good to go. If you don't renew it, there is no late fee, but there absolutely is the enforcement, which the OHV program is completely missing at the moment. So there is incentive. If I don't re-register my boat and I go boating and I get caught, I get a ticket. And I think the Endow game wardens are very good at that. And I've never gotten a ticket myself, by the way. But that's the missing incentive in our model, is we don't have that enforcement yet. If we had the enforcement, then yeah, I agree. The model would be the same and it would work. I just don't know until we have the enforcement and the compliance that we can give people any more reason not to participate, which is my concern in not having some sort of ding if you don't follow the law.
Chairman, this is Gary Lambert.
Go ahead, Gary.
I've got a couple of questions. Number one is that, as a point of order, I don't think that we finished the vote that we were in the middle of, and I believe I was entitled to that
discussion.
But I strongly suggest that the fall off in re-registration is because it becomes a $50 bill and you can still buy a California sticker. No problem, no late fee. No late fee in any of the states that I'm aware of for a green sticker. I've had stickers in California, Utah, Idaho, and maybe a couple others. No late fee. Don't use them, don't get a ticket, don't pay a late fee. Our problem is enforcement, education, and outreach. I believe that at $50, a guy's at the point of saying, I'll risk the ticket. My friend didn't get one yet, and he didn't pay him $20 the first time. I see that as a big reason that compliance has fallen off, because it's easy to procrastinate and not do something when you're not involved with it. And then you want to pay 1.5 times the sticker price and a penalty when you didn't violate the law in Nevada. The law in Nevada does not require continuous registration. It doesn't. Thank you, sir. I still do want the vote completed when we get through.
All right. And as a point of order, and good discussion on the points, but there was a motion to support the eliminating late fee for OHV stickers, and it was moved and seconded, and we were in the process of roll call, so I'll ask for that one more time. All those in favor say aye.
Is there further discussion?
Well, we could do further discussion. Gary, let's just give me the latitude. We can have a little more discussion on this, and then we'll move on before the vote, just so we have it.
That's fine, Chairman. It's been very difficult the way the mic's moving in the Reno location.
Okay, we'll do
for us to hear.
Okay.
It's very, very difficult to tell who's speaking also.
Okay. Anyone else want to discuss any further points?
John Griggs.
Go ahead, Mr. Griggs.
I guess on paper I agree with an affidavit system in that it makes some sense, but at the end of the day, we're either making somebody lie and say why they were non-op and fill out the affidavit, which is an expense that we incur for DMV's benefit. That's why, to me, I just throw that out and drop the late fee and let people come back and register. That's where I'm at.
All right, thank you, Mr. Drew.
Commissioner Giroux, for the record. I guess I'm still trying to absorb, as Commissioner Elmore said, if you make it to where there is no reason to register and there's no penalty, I guess, because I'm not all for penalties. It's just trying to have some. Trying to have some.
That goes under one for you're right.
Hang on there, Vegas. Michael was trying to make a point. If you can let him finish, please.
Thank you, Chair. I still do like the idea of having DMV be able to offer a non-op provision And I think that's one thing that we are missing is it's not that people aren't doing it, they're just currently not allowed to do it, as that's how I understand it. And if I could get clarification from DMV on that.
Doreen Rigsby, speaking for the Department of Motor Vehicles. Currently, the law 490 does not allow for a non-op. It just states that if you're registered and you're late, it's $20.
Is it $30?
$25. 25. What I did want to say, because I'm hearing some differences here, is just a process that we currently do, and this goes back to your concerns versus some of the concerns about just eliminating it. When you register your vehicle, once you've met that year, whether it's sitting in the driveway or whether anything else, you do accrue late fees percentage-wise up to a certain time. Then you just get a new registration, new title, or new registration completely, and you do the non-op. The non-op, though, is very touchy even with the department, because we watch people pull up in the driveway, come in, want to sign that non-op. So it again comes back down to enforcement. In the Vegas area, they can walk out and cite that person for having a non-registered vehicle. So I think, because I'm hearing, do get rid of the fees, and this is not the department's, this is the non-voting recommendation to you guys. Is that look in between. Look in between, because I know that for our registrations, if you pay $300 a year, and that's including taxes, because you're $33 to the registration. $33 is prorated if you pay 3 days late. But if you pay 2 months later, we can offer you a whole new registration, and you don't pay that. So there's options in between that $20. But I believe the 20 was put in there by the legislature.
Commissioner Elmore?
Chairman, I have a question
Hang on,
for
Gary.
Doreen.
Hang on.
This is Commissioner Elmore. I guess I'd like to propose a friendly amendment to the motion. I forget, did Commissioner Jackson, Commissioner Lambert, I guess you were the original motioner. I'm curious, would you be friendly to changing the statute to give the discretion to the commission as to whether or not we charge a late fee? Therefore, we could not charge a late fee now, and then when we have some enforcement, we could choose to charge a late fee. Would you be amenable to that?
Do it. Yes.
No.
Darren, this is Commissioner Lambert. I am friendly to your amendment, but I have a question for Doreen Rigsby that would supersede us proceeding anyway.
All right, hang on. Go ahead, Gary.
Hi, Doreen. It's Gary Lambert. Can you tell me what your authority under 490 is to collect a late fee on a non-motorized vehicle? I do not believe that there was an authority that I can remember, but I could be wrong. Can you tell me your authority to collect the money you've currently collected?
Yeah, I have Heather looking into that right now. It is, the late fee is written, and it is specific to that amount.
Yeah.
First sentence of a section of 490. So
It's, hold on. It's 490. 490 082 J. Like
490
490
082.
082.
I'm losing track of the numbers, but it's like 3J.
Okay, and then it's section or
And it's
chapter
number
3.
number 4. I'm sorry. It says. You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
If they can hear you, yes.
Jim,
Yes.
come to the speaker though.
See, that's what he didn't want to do, is actually get
We
up.
needed a circle, you guys.
Okay. I got the glasses on so I can talk and read really loud. So 490.82 Number 3, number 4 says, if an owner of a highway vehicle fails to renew the registration of the off-highway vehicle before it expires, the registration may be reinstated upon the payment of the Department of Annual Renewal Fee, a late fee of $25, and, if applicable, proof of insurance. So it's $25, and there doesn't mention any kind of proration or new registration or anything like that. It just says reinstatement upon $25.
It also states upon insurance, does it not?
If applicable.
If applicable, and what that is our
Okay.
large ATVs can get a insurance
Can require it.
sticker. Yes.
Absolutely. I thank you very much for your prompt answer, Doreen. I do accept Mr. Elmore's motion, a friendly amendment to my motion, because I think it is appropriate once we have adequate law enforcement, if we were to choose a path that's acceptable to the commission at that time.
It's a secondary.
Thank you.
Okay. You want to restate your thing, and then we'll see if it's amiable to the second.
This is Commissioner Elmore. My friendly amendment was to eliminate or to change the legislation to give the discretion of the late fee to the commission, where we can choose when, how, and how much to charge a late fee.
Chairman, I think that I either need to restate a commission amendment or a motion, or withdraw it and let him write an entirely new motion. I'm prepared to restate my motion to incorporate what he wants, or he can write his own motion, and I'll withdraw mine.
Either way.
Your discretion.
Just let them redo it.
All right.
So
We'll give.
I'll proceed.
Well, or if you withdraw, let Darren give it a stab and see how it goes.
I'm going to take a stab at it.
All right,
here.
go ahead.
I already got the motion on the floor. The motion is as such: to allow the OHV Commission the discretion of whether or not DNV is able to collect a late fee, and that can be determined as we go, and it's not written in stone. We can reinstitute a late fee, and we can remove a late fee as we seem pertinently available. Thank you.
We have a second to that motion.
Let me just add something. I think you're going to be violating due process. I mean, it's not really important in the sense that the legislature will probably make that same determination, but I just want to let you know right offhand that the person who would ultimately be responsible for the fee has to have fair notice of whether or not it applies or not. So you can't turn it on and turn it off.
I believe that my motion was strictly as to our position, as to our ask for legislation. I'm not going to write a law. I'm only going to ask the senator to carry water that we agree is appropriate water to carry. So I don't think I'm really out to where you described. We're just trying to decide what it is as our ask for the legislators.
I just wanted to let you know, because you're taking the time to create a position that I'm letting you know off the bat that it's probably going to fail, because it doesn't meet the requirements that you would have to create a law, which is fair notice to the end user. I mean, you can propose it. I'm just telling you right now, I can see problems with it.
Okay, so what do you understand to be fair notice to the users? Because we would have to comply with all of the rules to get this approved. So fair notice would be to advertise it, to make it known, etc. True.
Well, I guess it's not clear what you're talking about having the discretion. Are you talking about through regulation? How would you have that discretion? How would the end user become aware whether the late fee applied or it didn't apply?
Well, if the legislators put together a set of rules, I'm sure that they would require us to advertise for a period of 6 months or a year that the rules were being changed. I'm not going to pretend to be the legislator in this transaction. I'm only wanting to advise the legislation that currently the user group, and in my opinion, compliance is hurt by the late fee being utilized in the way it is.
All right. Commissioner Jackson?
Why don't we do this? Why don't we make a motion and that the late fees be put into regulation as opposed to NRS. So the proposal would be that we eliminate late fees from NRS and move them to regulation, which would be governed by the Commission, as regulations are already. Is that all right, Colleen? Raylene, I'm sorry. I'm getting my lanes mixed up.
And there's a few of us. So yeah, I think that would be better. And then again, the legislature is ultimately going to be the one drafting it. So
Mr. Commissioner Lambert, Paul Jackson for the record, would you be willing to withdraw your motion and then we'll just state the motion as I just put it?
That's what I was trying to do, but I was unable to get the floor.
All right,
I will withdraw my motion, Commissioner Lambert, for the record, for Paul to make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Thank you, Commissioner Lambert. Commissioner Jackson, for the record, I would make a motion that we support any legislation that would eliminate OHV sticker late fees from NRS and replace it with in regulation, which would be governed by the Off-Highway Vehicles Commission. Are we good with that? Did you get that? Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. I'll call for the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Very good. Motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. Okay.
Easy. Let's do that again.
Yeah. Next item was just exploring other sticker sales options, including retail distribution, the attestation process for registering, or possible privatization of OHV sticker sales. The Commissioner have a problem with that priority?
Let's do it. Yeah, do it.
All right. We'll move forward to the next.
Wait.
I tried. All right, go ahead, Michael.
Commissioner Giroux for the record. Just my point on this, as far as when you start taking and making basically a over-the-counter sale of stickers, basically what that's going to entail is it's going to bring in, I think it's going to bring in not a perception, but I think you're going to have basically a loophole for people to bypass the whole process. Not saying that could be a bad thing. It would be in some ways, streamlining it would be easy, but I guess I just see it in the California, the non-California stickers, where basically you don't even have to prove who you are. You don't have to even give, any, identification. You can be John Doe at, any address you want to give. Now you have a sticker, so you could put that on a stolen machine, and then, going down the road, once we get enforcement, they're going to see a viable sticker. Boom, good to go. So, in other words, just going with an open, blanketed type, program like that that's privatized, that you don't have any kind of, watchful eyes on it. I don't want to see that happen as far as, making a loophole for wrongdoing with our state, sticker on it. So.
Okay. Go ahead, Paul.
Commissioner Jackson for the record. Again, there is part of a BDR that I've seen that has not gone to LCB yet, so I don't know how it's going to come out at the end, but there is a suggestion in BDR that the stickers be sold through DMV dealers who are already authorized by DMV to, I should say, dealers of off-highway vehicles who have already been authorized by DMV to do VIN checks. There are also some things that and again, we've got to leave this up to the legislature. We can't dictate what they do, but the legislature, I believe, is going to encompass record keeping. So a person buying a sticker has got to present a title or a certificate of ownership for that vehicle, and then they have to provide their driver's license or driver's license number, and then the dealer can issue the sticker. That information would then come back, and I believe it's because, and Sheriff Lee can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's so that information will eventually be able to be entered into COBRA when they're given a grant to do that, so that they can track stolen vehicles and unregistered vehicles. So I believe, and I'm being very general because I haven't seen specific language. The only language I've seen is language pre going to LCV. Thank you.
Commissioner Lambert. Commissioner Lambert, go ahead.
I believe that the attestation issue, I was going to address Mr. Giroux's issues. And I get bounced there. The attestation part of this could even include a photograph, as has been discussed in meetings with DMV. It's an affidavit. You already still have a process that if there's a stop to check the VIN to the sticker number. There are some electronic techniques to make that very doable. I personally think that if you were able to attest to your vehicles, the guys I know of a guy on the commission that at one point owned a couple hundred motorcycles that he sold because he didn't want to deal with the VINs and titles. So he got rid of them really early on in the game. We need to make it easy. Getting rid of waiting for the sticker, getting the sticker in a cash register, that doesn't mean that the VIN can't be inspected by the dealer. It just means that you get the gratification of leaving after you pay your money and putting the sticker on your vehicle, knowing that you might get stopped that day, and you're buying the sticker to avoid being stopped. I really think that America is a world of instant gratification. I have bought all of those stickers in all of those states, and I've never waited for it in the mail, ever. Nor do I think waiting for it in the mail is at all good for compliance.
Commissioner Lee.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lee.
I would agree that it would be nice to have it that way. I just fear that we're getting titles. It's not just a sticker that we're putting on the vehicle saying we can write it. We are obtaining titles for these vehicles. I don't know, maybe Mr. Giroux can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that Mr. Giroux, through his dealership, has access to the statewide law enforcement system where he can run the VIN numbers through that law enforcement system to find out whether that vehicle is stolen. Yes, they do have to show ownership. Yes, you're right, and all of that. My just fear is that I think we have to be careful. We're getting titles for these vehicles, so we have to be careful that those people do own those vehicles and it isn't stolen, because we personally have recovered stolen four-wheelers by doing VIN inspections.
Commissioner Lambert, for the record, I believe that the item we're discussing is explore other sticker sales options. And it had nothing to do with titling. Titling needs to be handled in the way it's done. But not everybody that needs a sticker needs a title by any means. You need a sticker to ride your motorcycle. You need a title to sell your motorcycle and prove ownership. They're independent topics. The only thing that I support looking at other sticker sales options, including retail distribution and attestation process for registering, and possible privatization of the OHV sticker sales program somewhere well out in the future. The privatization issue was an issue that Mr. Jackson had supported vehemently earlier. Getting the stickers in the cash register, Gary Lambert and his user groups that I represent support. We believe you should be able to buy a sticker on your way to Idaho and put your Nevada sticker on and go ride in Idaho. We believe you should not wait and that you should not be trying to explain to an Idaho enforcement officer that you got a receipt. We believe that you should indeed be able to get a sticker out of a cash register. We may be wrong and we may not have support in legislation, but the people that I represent believe that the stickers should be available when you pay for them. The issue of title is an entirely different issue. It belongs with DMV, it belongs with safeguards, it involves ownership. Absolutely, that needs all of the controls in place. Could it be done with attestation? I doubt that the Senate would approve that. Stickers, that's a different story. We need compliance. When I can buy a sticker, put it on the vehicle, I'll buy the sticker and put it on the vehicle because that's easy. I like that. I get immediate gratification. Thank you.
Commissioner Giroux, I do want to streamline the process. I do see your point, Gary, and again, I'm going to kind of lean more toward Commissioner Lee because the two are intertwined. Because now you're registering a unit. It's like going to DMV and can you register, someone else's vehicle in your name? If you don't prove that it's yours to own, but you're saying that you're all for registering a unit that you don't have to prove ownership. I guess my big thing is I just don't want to have someone at the 7-Eleven counter, here's your $20, slap a sticker on, and we move on. Because that's just going to, it's going to degrade the whole system, and basically, sure there'll be some revenue flow, but now you put a sticker on anything. Again, stolen vehicles. Take that stolen vehicle and you want to go ride in Idaho, we'll slap a Nevada sticker on it because you didn't have to prove ownership. That to me is just a big loophole, and I think it's just asking for problems.
I appreciate your position, Mike. I really do believe that that's the function of a title and not part of what I'm discussing. Thank you.
Commissioner Jackson, for the record, and I think Commissioner Lamb is correct and is saying that this is a title. If somebody has a title, then they can go into a place and get the sticker. Again, they have to have the title first, or that proof of ownership other than a title, because you don't have to have a title for an off-highway vehicle in this state, but it does have to be registered. And the registration comes before the sticker. The other part I would say to you is that we're not writing legislation here. We're simply saying that we will support legislation which is done. And quite honestly, we can't try and do the legislators' jobs for them. All these points are good points and they should be brought up, but the place to bring them up is in the Transportation Committee in the Assembly, not here, because we can't do anything about it. We can only say we support it or we don't support it as a commission. And that would be it. So, are you ready for a motion? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'll certainly entertain a motion.
You ready?
Yes.
Paul Jackson.
Mike.
Paul Jackson, for the record, I would make a motion that we accept this item, and that the Commission would support actions by the legislature to privatize or make stickers available to the public in a more streamlined way, possibly through retailers.
Commissioner Giroux, I'll second that.
Thank you. That was a long time coming. You left me hanging there for quite a while.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
John Griggs.
Go ahead, John.
I like Commissioner Giroux's position. I also support privatization, but as a landowner representative on the commission, I like the fact that we can keep tabs at who's out there. I support the motion as it was stated. but I would like our position to reflect that we choose responsible dealers, not just your typical 7-Eleven, but responsible dealers to sell stickers.
Is that a friendly emotion?
Commissioner Griggs, would that be a friendly emotion that would be by dealers authorized by DMV?
No, I don't want to amend the motion. What I'm saying is when the legislators talk to us about our position, whether it's you, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Jackson, or our lobbyist, that we want this done responsibly, not frivolously.
Okay. Any further discussion? Very well. I'll call for the motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very well, motion carried. Next item would be, go ahead, any further discussion? Okay. Next topic was creating a seat on the commission for Jeep four-wheel drive representation. Anyone uncomfortable with that position?
Commissioner.
Commissioner Jackson, go ahead.
Commissioner Jackson, I'm not uncomfortable with, opening up the commission to other users, but I think that one comment that was made to me after the last meeting was that the Jeep drivers or the Jeep people are not sticker holders. They don't have a financial stake. And I don't know quite how to address this, whether I think there'd be a lot of resistance if we said they had to have stickers, if they were going to be represented, if they were going to have representation, or whether we do it as some kind of voluntary program and change the law that while they're off road they have to have stickers. And I don't quite know the answer to that, but again, the point was brought up to me, and I said I would bring it up at the meeting.
Chairman, Commissioner Lambert.
Go ahead, Commissioner Lambert.
Off-highway vehicles are, I believe, are currently defined as vehicles that do not have a license plate. So, indeed, the rock crawlers and all of those groups, the fact of the matter is that the largest user group of OHV resources are license-plated SUVs by 4 to 1 or more. They deserve a voice. We've been giving them a voice through other means because we respect Larry and the Jeep community and the Hills Angels. I perhaps think that given the 11 people that are on there, there might be 1 or 2 of those positions that should have been given to the four-wheel drive people as opposed to who holds them. I would support looking at giving them a voice because they are the largest user. If we treat them with great respect, Oregon and Washington have quite a few stickers on licensed vehicles. I have stickers on licensed motorcycles. I bought Oregon and Washington stickers for dual sport motorcycles. I'm under no obligation to do that. I believe that they do a good job with their trail funds, and they do a good job with the resource development and protection. They give us a strong voice when we're threatened by people with interests that oppose ours. At least asking the legislation if they deserve a chance seems reasonable. All we're discussing is whether we would support it if somebody moved forward. I have no reason not to support the largest user group of off-highway vehicles. I support them. I don't think that we're asking to change anything. We're just saying if somebody's interested in doing that, it's okay. I think it's okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Drew?
Commissioner Drew, for the record. I believe whether they're licensed or not, if they're designed for off-road, I think they're inclusive of, and I believe it's in NRS. It looks like 490.060. And it's subsection E. 1E. So, and I'm definitely for the four-wheel drive community and their clubs. They bring a lot of clout. they're definitely going to always protect the off-road, community. I think it would be foolish not to include them. In fact, I think they should have been included from the beginning, and I think that might have been an oversight. That's my opinion.
Larry, would you like to say something about this?
I would. Larry Calkins, Nevada Four-Wheel Drive Association. Our association represents street legal Jeep, truck, as well as other off-highway vehicles, four-wheel drive ATVs and UTVs, and we're in the process of creating clubs for those groups.
Larry, excuse me.
Yeah.
Let go of the mic. We can't hear you for you. Rattling the mic.
Okay, can I do this? Did you hear what I said so far? Okay, I'll go on with my hands off the mic. We offer a couple benefits in the OHV and the four-wheel drive community because when we start talking about those gas taxes that are out there, are the largest users of gas. So we could support, we have a little more clout, I think, in helping support getting those. If somebody tells us how to go about supporting that, we certainly would do a letter writing campaign, et cetera, on trying to get that portion of the gas taxes as in the other things. As far as registration, an optional registration to where, if we want to display the Nevada OHV sticker, as long as it's optional, but we've already done our registration on the street legal vehicles. The non-street legal vehicles, like the buggies and such that don't fall into the ATV, UTV class, really ought to be administered as ATVs, UTVs, with some type of entitlement to them. So anyway, we certainly support going ahead and providing recognition of four-wheel drive Jeep truck representation on the committee.
Very well. Any further comments?
Sorry, Riggs.
Go ahead, John, and then Tim, I'll get you after that. Go ahead, John.
As a landowner, rancher, representative on the commission, I'm not necessarily here because of my OHV use. I'm here because of the impacts of OHVs and the shared goals. I support having these folks on the commission for the same reasons.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jim, you want to come to the microphone?
That's what you get for sitting on the end.
Jim Richardson, for the record. I just want to make sure we're not making a mistake that is already referenced in 490-060, that a motor vehicle that is registered by the department in accordance with Chapter 482, I don't have 482 in front of me, so if we're talking about recognizing vehicles that are already registered, it may be precluded by that number B. And then a low-speed vehicle also, the rock crawler comes to mind, and that's referenced in 484B 637. So other than those two, B and C, I don't see why we couldn't support it, but we may be looking at some sort of rewrite of some sort, just in case.
Thank you.
Good catch.
Aaron?
Good catch.
This is Commissioner Elmore. I think that Commissioner Richardson's point is something that we absolutely should look at. I feel somewhat responsible for this one making it on there. I simply, I think last meeting or the meeting before, mentioned, hey, we've got 11 seats, a number of which have gone unfilled, or at least one, which appears to be the director nomination from the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, who, after 2.5 years, I've yet to see somebody step up and fill that role. So my thinking is, hey, if we can get somebody who can contribute to the voice of recreation on public lands in Nevada, which is beneficial to all of the other user groups, and the mission of the Off-Highway Vehicles Commission, that it makes us stronger as opposed to having an empty seat for department or representatives who can't find or don't want to participate. That simply is my thinking.
Okay, excellent points by everybody. I have a motion to support our idea of getting representation on the commission from the Jeep 4-wheel drive community.
Chairman, Gary Lambert for the record. I move that we would be supportive of any legislation to allow the forward community a voice.
Very good. It's been moved. Is there a seconder?
It's Jim Richardson.
Jim Richardson seconds that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a motion. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. Any opposed? Very good. Passes unanimously. All right. Second part of this discussion was some of the recommendations that were presented today in the audit that may influence the Commission's legislative priorities. The first being allowing for excess funds to be given to the Commission from the DMV. Does anyone have a problem with that? Or a comment to that might be a better way to put it. Yes, Paul. Hang on. Coming over.
Commissioner Jackson, if the DMV's own bill draft request goes through unchanged, that would automatically happen anyway. So we've got to decide whether we're going to support their bill draft request in its entirety or just one part of it.
Okay. Good comment. Any other
Commissioner
comments?
Lambert,
Go ahead, Gary.
I know that I've asked to see their bill draft request. It would be impossible to support a bill draft request without some language. I know that there has been talk about when it was generated, we would see it. Has anyone else seen said language?
Not yet.
I don't think so.
Hard to support. I wish we'd have had it today. Thank you.
All right.
It's not on the legislative
It's still
bill.
not out there for
Yeah.
public. We still don't have that enough to
Chairman McKay, where are we on the agenda?
We're at the bottom of 8, actually, Rainey.
We're at bullet point 7 on
Oh.
item 8.
Oh, yeah. We're all the way down. We're the 5th bullet from the bottom of that section.
We're on the recommendation of the audit, and part of that recommendation was to have the
Oh, so we're on the recommendations of the audit, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that there
No.
was a vote back when we were discussing the audit to table the recommendations until the following agenda. Under 7.
No, we made a motion to accept the audit.
I believe we made a motion just to accept that audit.
No, and table any recommendations for the next meeting.
It's already agendized. What's the holdup?
Okay. Well, it's a procedural matter there. So if that's what our motion was, then...
Well, no, we accepted the report.
Hang on one sec, John. Go ahead.
They can't hear me.
Okay. Well, go ahead, John, and then I'll have... go ahead, John, first, and then I'll give it to Paul.
Thank you. I thought we were working on the next bullet point, allowing for excess funds to be given to the commission from the DMV.
Yes, that's true. That's what we were working on. Would that make it...
So that's, to me, that's outside of the audit recommendation.
Yes. Yes. True. You comfortable with that, really?
Right. So are these other bullet pointed items subpoints under the recommendations presented in the audit?
They are.
We can't.
No, we cleaned it.
They are not.
No, excuse me, they are not sometimes.
They are. So are we on, well, I've labeled them now A through K. So we have the audit as F. Are we on F or are we on G? Are we talking about excess funds or are we talking about the audit?
We're on excess funds.
All of those things are direct requests. So what happened with the audit?
We accepted the
It
audit.
was tabled quite a while ago.
No.
Yeah, we accepted the audit and tabled the recommendation.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Okay. So,
Yep.
okay for us to be on just the bullet point of allowing for excess funds to be given to the commission from the DMV.
Yes.
What is that,
Okay.
an audit request?
Yeah, it was part of one of the audit recommendations.
Okay.
We accepted the audit.
Does anyone have a problem with that?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Okay. Any discussion from commissioners in Elko or Vegas on that? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but I've been around before. Very good.
Could we just vote on all 4 of those recommendations?
You could. You want to make a motion?
I would make a motion that the.
Hold on, wait, let me get the microphone.
Yeah.
Sorry. Commissioner Jackson, for the record, I would make a motion that we support all 4 of the recommendations by the audit report, including and not limited to excess funds coming from the DMV to us, allowing a portion of the gas tax revenues to come to the commission. Development of transparent monthly revenue and expense reports from DMV to us, and yeah, that's it. I'm sorry, it wasn't for those 3. Oh, yeah, that's not part. Yeah, that's going to be separate. I'm done 6 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's 3.
We have a motion. Is there a second for that motion?
Commissioner Lambert, I second his motion.
Very good. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, passes unanimously. All right. Only 2 more bullet points here left here. Allowing the sale of out-of-state OHV stickers.
Yeah.
Have to be a little discussion on that. And actually, I think part of the qualifier would be that operate in Nevada more than 15 days. Is that the distinction there?
Right.
Any discussion from the commissioners? Any objections?
As a point of discussion, I support allowing the sale of out-of-state OHV stickers, for sure, but we do not prohibit the sale of out-of-state OHV stickers. You are not required to be a resident of Nevada to buy a Nevada OHV sticker. It is somewhat redundant. The same goes true for the 4-wheel drive community. They are welcome to buy a sticker, even if it's from Mars.
You only have one 4-wheel drive vehicle out, why not?
Isn't that 6-wheel drive?
Yeah.
Mars, the moon, they're all over.
Mars and Moon.
Any other comments by the commissioners?
John Griggs.
Go ahead, John.
Just a question: Is this in a BDR somewhere already?
No.
No.
Not that I know of.
Not to our knowledge would be a better answer. Okay. Any more discussion? Could I have a motion?
Sorry.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Commissioner Joe, for the record. I guess I would like to just have some more information on, what they're going to consider, for an out-of-state OHV sticker. Do you have to be an out-of-state purchaser? Otherwise, again, it's going to create a loophole. If you have something that's not, copacetic, then you can just buy it out of state, and again, you're just slapping a sticker on. That would be one of the things. Another thing that I see, because we sell a lot of California non-reg, basically what happens is in California you pay a fee, and as a California resident you get 2 years for the fee, and if you're in Nevada buying a California non-resident you get only 1 year, so it's you pay double the price. So I would be supportive in something to the fact that there's they would have to pay a premium versus say a resident. I think a non-resident would have to pay a premium versus a Nevada resident. Otherwise, I think you'd have regular, residents buying non-resident, stickers because it's easy if it's the same price. So, just some food for thought.
Would you like to put down a form of a motion or qualifier?
Think about it.
Or just that legislatively may support the idea of an out-of-state sticker if it's done responsibly?
Sure. Yes.
Okay, I guess I can't make that motion. So you guys could.
That's what we do. Commissioner Jackson, for the record, I would make the motion that we support the responsible application of an a sticker for out-of-state residents.
Commissioner Giles, second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion by the commissioners? Hearing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Our last little item right here is the feasibility of being hosted by another state agency. Go ahead, Commissioner Graves.
I move that we do not accept this recommendation of being hosted by another state agency.
All right, we have that motion.
I second his motion.
Okay, motion and seconded. Time for discussion. Any other discussion? Mr. Jackson?
Commissioner Jackson, for the record, these items are things that we are going to support in legislation. Though I do think it is possible that we may look at being hosted by an agency at some point. I don't believe that we should support any legislation that forces us to do that. So again, I would be positive to the motion.
Any other comments from any other commissioners?
Just
You get your exercise.
Let's get a can. It's a string.
Commissioner Richardson, one of the things that when I first came to the commission, that I noticed was a lack of, not necessarily oversight, but instruction for those that were not familiar with the process. And the AG's position was they're there to make sure we don't go to jail, not necessarily to advise us on what we're supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. One of the things I recognized as a commissioner is our inability to get things done. And I think one of those reasons, if not the main reason, is because we're not being coached and mentored by another agency, is what our responsibilities are. So I agree with what you're saying. We don't want more oversight to keep us from doing what we're doing. But as I see it, we're not really doing what we're supposed to be doing. And I think the main reason is because of the lack of outside or other government agency taking a look at what we're supposed to be doing and giving us some advice. So if there was a way that we could get input and direction from a more experienced commission or a more experienced part, then we should probably look at that as opposed to it being run by somebody else.
Excellent point. Any other comments by the commission? Commissioner McKay, for the record, there may be a possibility that the concerns expressed by Commissioner Richardson and others, that the grant agency from the state may be able to do a lot of the administration budgeting, that kind of stuff. We could retain the independent decision to fund these, and that could remain with us. But they could provide us the administrative support and a little more objectivity from another agency in administering those grants themselves. So, just a comment.
Mr. Okay, Mr. Lambert, for the record. The grant agency for the state of Nevada, I don't believe that by not being put under their wing we're precluded from using them. They run as an independent entity, much as the commission does, in my understanding. I think it was a wonderful recommendation that we seek their help and guidance on grant issues. I still prefer an autonomous commission that is motivated and directed by the user groups that pay the money.
Very well, thank you. Any further comments? Very well, then we have a motion that's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Very well. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay. Actually, our next item.
I need to add one.
Oh, you need to add
Yeah.
a comment?
Yeah.
Oh, I got you. Very well. Before we go, we can entertain any topics that we may have omitted in our legislative priorities, and Commissioner Elmore would like to speak on that.
This is Commissioner Elmore for the record. I will do my best to keep this one brief. I saw the agenda and noticed that other items may be submitted by the commissioners or the public to be acted upon. So one thing that has become a glaring situation is, as the sportsman's representative, I've been reminded that our hands are really tied in NRS on how we can spend funds relating to wildlife issues. Perfect example is sage grouse. I think that it would be hard for somebody to disagree that when it comes to OHV recreation in Nevada, that the sage grouse issue is not a potential gatekeep to giving us access or locking us out. I think everybody's apprised of the realities that we're potentially facing. But in theory...
I have to interrupt you. I'm sorry. This is really not on the agenda.
Well,
so let's just
one, you haven't heard where I was going into. It says in the last line item, other items may be submitted by the commissioners or the public to be acted upon. So I don't.
Well, I'm not exactly sure what was intended there, but it can't be, if it's not something that the public can be aware of to show up and do, it should not be discussed in this meeting. And then since, I don't know where you're going, but I suppose you can talk about it very briefly, enough to figure out where you're going, but we might be treading on open meeting law violation.
This is Commissioner Elmer. I certainly have no intention on treading on open meeting law violations. That's the last thing I want to do. But when I saw that line on the agenda, I thought this was the appropriate time to do it. So we can certainly agendize it for future meetings, which only pushes us further into the hot seat for legislative action. But when I saw the agenda, I assumed that that's exactly what that sentence was suggesting. So, pardon my confusion, but I was just trying to read the agenda and make it work.
No, and I understand that. I think it's a problem with the agenda. Were you trying to make a suggestion for a future meeting, or where were you going?
So concept was simply that currently NRS does not allow this commission to authorize funds, whether it goes to a state agency or a private entity or any other grant applicant, to spend money on wildlife-related issues. We can spend money on habitat-related issues, but nothing related to wildlife that is tied to OHV. I'm not trying to carve out wildlife funds that aren't directly related to OHV. But once again, the sage grouse is one of those issues that makes this blatantly obvious. And so I thought this was the correct time to throw that out there. We can discuss it later if needed, but there it is.
Thank you, Darren. Michael?
And I just want to make clear, Commissioner Elmore, I don't think that you were trying to violate the law. I want to make it clear that I wasn't suggesting that you were, just that I want to make sure the commission isn't in trouble by going down an avenue that somebody may not be aware of that would be discussed at this commission and then would later complain that there was a discussion and they would have appeared had they known. So that's my only point, and I appreciate what you're trying to do, and sometimes the law can be frustrating. I'm just trying to keep you out of trouble.
Chairman Jones.
You say something, Gary?
I did.
Okay.
Gary Lambert for the record. I wanted to confirm, or at least question, was the agenda presented to Raylene prior to its publication? Were there any items added after this agenda was presented to Raylene, if it was?
No.
Thank you.
Well, let me clarify that there were lots of changes made to the agenda over the course of getting it finalized, and I don't know whether this was overlooked in the changes or it was or wasn't. The important thing is that we don't violate open meeting law. So if there's something on the agenda that shouldn't have been there because it's not clear what it's about, the important thing is that we don't violate the law when we're discussing. You need to be very clear about openly informing the public of what will be discussed, and just an open item of something else may be discussed will violate an open meeting law.
I believe I was aware of that. I was just making sure that we've done our correct job and given you an opportunity to review the agenda prior to it being published and make sure that we availed you the protection of giving us a chance to be protected. I was making sure we'd given you a chance. That's all. I understand that these are confusing issues. I was just making sure that we weren't using an agenda that you hadn't signed off. Thank you.
Okay, having said that, Michael, you want to make 2 quick points and not delve into
I'll
it
just
much?
do one quick point.
Okay. Really? Tell us when you're stepping out of bounds here.
Are these items that are on the agenda?
I was under the, Commissioner Giroux, for the record, I was under the same assumption as Commissioner Elmore, so I guess
We'll agendize it next.
I guess we can agendize it and push it back. Just a quick touch on the points. One of them was wanted to just touch on tax credit, and that was something that's been brought up to the public at the dealerships. Previously.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm into it.
Just trying to save Nevada taxpayers money, so and obviously the second one would have been the 2 different licenses the dealers now have to have, one for off, one for on. I thought we'd address that, and I guess it has not been addressed, so that's my 2 points.
Raylene's got the whip.
I'm just a messenger.
No problem. Near 400 miles away, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Greg, can I just make one point?
All right, one more comment.
And it's quick. I'll be very quick. This is Commissioner Jackson. Any of these legislation things, if people don't agree with, for example, dealers don't agree with having tattoo licenses, can be addressed at the legislature by either getting a lobbyist or becoming a citizen lobbyist, which is you pay $20 unless you're a veteran, you don't pay anything, and get your badge and and go bring these points up. And I would encourage anybody to do that, especially anybody in the user groups that don't like something or want to bring something up. That would be the way to do it. Become a citizen lobbyist. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Very well. Item number 9 was not written correctly enough to be discussed by the commission today for discussion or possible action. In earlier discussion, we had referenced the role of the Office of Criminal Justice and the 20% that we're supposed to disperse to them each year. I think we have that understanding. We can move forward. I don't think it has to be discussed anymore. How do you feel the way I treated that one, Randy?
Just to clarify, this was drafted originally with the assumption that 20% was part of the grant process, with the understanding that the 20% is not part of the grant process. Anything that's where, I guess the way it's written, it says may move to follow the Office of Criminal Justice Assistance's recommendations. So law requires that you must follow the recommendations.
Yes, I think we have that understanding. So, very well. Number 11 is the Treasurer's Report. And we're not going to propose the 2015 proposed budget today. There's a couple more pieces that have to fall into place. We will discuss that in its entirety next meeting. But we can give a brief presentation on our 2014 revenue expenses. Gary, do you want to take care of that?
Thank you, Chairman. Gary Lambert for the record. First, I want to thank Chairman Cox for his hard work on this issue. At current date, for year-end balance for 2014, we had $1,025,130.62. This document really does break down that we made it under our 5%, although we did not make our obligation to pay stipends. We have a good understanding of where we're going forward. I think that the document is nicely self-explanatory, and I do thank Mr. Cox for generating this in QuickBooks. Are there questions?
Ask him about that.
All right, Gary.
This is a question.
Oh, go ahead. Nadine, is that you?
Commissioner Baker and I don't have a copy of what he's referencing.
Okay. It was attachment on the agenda. So Gary, you might give a little more detail. You may also give a little more discussion on the stipends.
Okay. So it is a profit loss statement generated out of QuickBooks for the Nevada Commission on Off-Highway Vehicles. Our administration and accounting fees last year were $467.50. Our contract services, which is the executive secretary, are $18,156.88. Liability insurance, which is paid to the Attorney General's office for, among other things, court issues, was $1,384.34. Our other office expenses were a meager $166.02. Postage and mailing for the commission last year were $365.57. Printing and copying totaled $136.02. Room rental was a $415.75 item. Office supplies totaled $491.13. Travel to conferences and meetings were $466.40. Fuel that was bought by the commission totaled $544.51. Travel totaled $612.40. Total administration was $23,200 and $6.55. Grant expenditures and projects were not issued. The outstanding liabilities that the Commission has that I am aware of was they were submitted an invoice for my stipend under Mr. Jackson's rank for a partial payment of $3,100. We've been advised several times by the Attorney General that that's a due and payable item. It is yet to be paid. We have an outstanding for anyone that were at a budget balance that should have actually been paid. But that's not on the agenda today. I just wanted to review our last year's profit and loss statement. Thank you.
What's the $150 a day?
I'm sorry, what is the 3,100 for?
Please say that again. I cannot hear you well.
Oh, okay. Never mind. I got an answer to my question.
Okay. Any other comments by the Commissioner? Comment by the public?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, I was just curious if these funds were being held in an interest-bearing account and what that interest-bearing might be at this point, since we have over $1 million in there.
The answer is that I believe we're going to put an agenda item up and look for interest-bearing avenues that we can put money towards and what that will look like. It has not been agendized. We were just kind of stalling and getting to the point where we had some momentum. I believe you'll see an item on next month's, or the next agenda that will allow us to discuss that.
We have a motion to accept the 2014 revenue
State
expense
budget
report.
It's not interest bearing. Right.
Just in general.
Mr. Chairman,
That's what the
Yes.
NRS says yes.
I just want to add one thing, and that is with the 20% that the Commission is required to pay to law enforcement. And I think that that should be put on the agenda as rapidly as possible because you have money that was due and payable in 2014 as well as 2015.
Very well. And why don't we just, we can accept the yearly income and expense, and we'll have to deal with the law enforcement portion of it at our next meeting. Very well. I'll move on to public comment if there's no other comment on the treasurer's report.
Do we need to make a motion to accept?
I think we still have a couple outliers, like the law enforcement portion of it, grant-wise, so we'll just leave it as it is for now, if that pleases the Commission.
Can we just make sure it's on the next agenda so it doesn't go overlooked?
Absolutely. Very well. We come to public comment. Very well. Any public comment? Mr. Gers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Gers with Nevada Trail Stewards. So I guess my question would be, my comment would be, if this is in a general account, obviously, yeah, that would be great to get some interest bearing going on that. That money's been sitting around for a while. And I haven't really heard anything ever addressed on the issue of the previous grant process and the funds that were applied for in that grant process and readdressing that $300,000+. So maybe we can agendize an item on that and look forward to seeing that at the next meeting. Fantastic. Thanks for your great input.
Sir.
Any other public comments? Please step forward.
Yeah.
For the record, this is Cherie Swift with the Office of Criminal Justice Assistance, and I have 3 comments. I'll make them somewhat short. A suggestion, if you know you're not going to talk about one of the agenda items, if you could let the people know at the beginning of the meeting, that would be helpful.
We didn't. That was a normal.
Well, as soon as you know,
yeah,
that it would be helpful.
So you've been here the whole time waiting
Yes,
for that
I
one
have.
to talk about something we can't talk about. That is
Yes,
a
I have.
no-go. I apologize on behalf of my fellow commissioners with that.
Secondly, Raylene's suggestion that you talk about law enforcement 20% be put on an agenda item soon. I would agree with that. There, as you are beginning to find out, a lot of state processes, guidelines, and laws that take time to get through. It's going to take us a while to work out those specifics. And I believe Commissioner Richardson's suggestion of having some state assistance and guidance would be helpful. With that said, I'm not offering our office. I have worked with the state grantor's office on quite a few things, and that might be a good starting point. But as you can tell, there's a lot of frustration with working with anything with government. And I think having just a little bit of that advice and guidance would help you with your efforts.
I would like to respond to that very briefly because I don't want your office to be under the misunderstanding that the regulations in any way are things that your office is going to have to become familiar with or implement. That the regulations that were drafted are not for the law enforcement part of the grant. So your office is the recommending body to this commission for who those grant funds should be dispersed to.
Thank you. And I understand the regulations part, but I've been coming to these meetings long enough that I know it's not going to be as simple as I get to sit down and choose who the money is going to. And so we need to work out the specifics of how that's going to work, is what I was referring to. But I appreciate what you're saying. I understand. Thank you.
Again, we apologize.
Yes,
Oh, it's not like she's been here since 9:30.
We need public comment.
We did know
Vegas.
11:30.
Hearing no public comment in Vegas. Any public comment in Elko?
No, our public left.
You can do it.
All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I understand.
Okay, hang on.
He had some points to bring up, which really stopped him, but he can bring them up in public comment. And
Okay.
can't do anything
Hang
about
on one sec. Michael?
Commissioner Giroux for the record. I guess under this part, I'd like to bring up a couple of the points to get them on the agenda for our next meeting. It's been brought to my attention from the public that part of the purchase process of an off-road vehicle, prior to these becoming, what's considered a vehicle in the eyes of DMV, just a simple fact, if you have a machine that you come in and trade in to purchase a new machine, currently you get no tax credit on that trade-in. If it's a watercraft, you get tax credit. If it's a street vehicle, you get tax credit. If it's an off-road vehicle, you do not get tax credit. So basically the public's kind of getting cheated on that, that transaction.
Okay.
And I think it's, something that definitely, they should get the credit that's due. So, and that's something that's going to have to be, done through the legislative body. And then my other bullet point was something that we discussed for the dealers, having to have a separate license bond for off-road sales. So it's been discussed, and somehow I don't think it's made it to a legislative action. So I definitely like to get that on the agenda for the dealers.
Okay.
I'm all right. I'll get it on there.
Thank you.
Very well. Any other public comment? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second? All those in favor say
Aye.
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 We didn't have
Any opposed? Oh,
We used to have Susan Fisher.
one point of order.
She was
Is it acceptable to the commission to have a meeting February 19th, a month and 4 days from now, to discuss a myriad of issues? Hearing no negative comments, we'll move in that direction. Very well. We'll send a notice.